Qin Yi, once again relying on his reasoning ability, perfectly solved a case in front of Lu Jiwei, which allowed him to take pride once more. "Pretty impressive," said Lu Jiwei. "Of course. I've got the real deal," said Qin Yi. Next, he just needed to solve one more case to perfectly complete the mission and receive the system's reward. An amulet. He was very pleased with this reward. Given his current situation, this amulet could at least protect him once from a late-stage chi-controlling attack. It was already past 8 in the evening, and his talent aggregation system could only maintain effectiveness for 3 hours, and additionally, the same talent could only be used once per day. Once the time was up, the reasoning talent extracted from others would disappear, and if the mission were not completed by then, today's talent value would be wasted. There were probably less than half an hour left. The last task, he would pick an easy one and make it quick and decisive. Lu Hong returned from the training room, ready to finish today's work after putting aside the matter of rapid flame. But when he passed by the interrogation room and found it empty, he asked Xiao Chao, "Where's the person from the interrogation room? Have you closed the case?" "Not yet. We haven't handed over the case of electronic fraud," said Xiao Chao, looking up. "Then where's the suspect?" "Not there." Xiao Chao ran over, looked into the interrogation room, and his face changed dramatically. "How is this possible? He was here just 10 minutes ago." Xiao Chao muttered in disbelief. Not only that, they discovered that the door to the interrogation room had been left open. Lu Hong had a bad feeling and rushed into the interrogation room, searching every inch of it, only to find a pair of unlocked handcuffs, which made his face grow extremely grave. He shouted to Ma Feiguang, who was closest to the door, "Xiao Ma, did you see anyone pass by the door just now?" "I wasn't paying attention." Ma Feiguang shook his head. "Check the surveillance. Right away." Ma Feiguang quickly tapped away at the keyboard, pulling up the entire office's surveillance, including footage from the entrance and all other directions. In the last half hour, no suspicious individual left through the entrance. There was only a law enforcement officer who had finished his shift leaving, but they were visible in the surveillance the whole time, confirming it wasn't a disguise. Ma Feiguang then turned the surveillance to the interrogation room and quickly noticed how the bald man somehow managed to unlock his handcuffs and, while others weren't paying attention, effortlessly opened the door of the interrogation room and then slipped towards the nearby staircase. 2 minutes ago, he ran towards the holding cell area. There's no exit there. Lu Hong furrowed his brows. In their facility, prisoners had to be gathered in the interrogation room first, and once their crimes were confirmed, according to the process, they were taken to the temporary cells at the back, where they would wait to be transported to the prison to be locked up together at a designated time. Next to the interrogation room was the staircase leading to the holding cells. However, at that moment, alarms from the holding cells started blaring. Someone's forcibly opening the doors of the holding cells. Lu Hong's expression changed dramatically. The doors to the holding cells were alarmed, so if they were opened without a law enforcement officer's pass, it would immediately trigger an alert. They hurried towards the holding cells and did a check. The prisoner from Cell 5 was gone. "Quick! Initiate emergency procedures. Lock down the entire law enforcement station," commanded Lu Hong sternly. Bald-headed LV, he had escaped from the interrogation room 2 minutes earlier, heading towards the detention area and kidnapping the prisoner from Cell 5. It had not been long, and it was very likely that these two individuals had not yet managed to escape. "Yes." Ma Feiguang hurriedly activated the emergency measures of the enforcement office. The grounds of the enforcement office lit up with a transparent light shield, like a protective bubble, completely sealing off the entire office and simultaneously cutting off all external contacts, blocking every possible means of departure. The enforcement office's security measures were extremely effective. The Awakeners of this world possessed a variety of systems, including the Transcend Movie World system, the Transcend All-World system, or those capable of creating spatial corridors or teleporting on the spot. However, as long as they were within the grounds of the enforcement office, any system that could force an escape would be blocked. This ensured that the imprisoned criminals could not flee. Lu Hong's mechanical raven lit up, scanning every inch of cell 5, searching every corner of the cell. However, there was nothing out of the ordinary in the entire cell. The alarm had just gone off, and the only thing he could be certain of was that the two prisoners were still within the grounds of the enforcement office. The question was, how did they disappear? What happened? Lu Jiwei and Qin Yi both rushed over. You two don't come in. There's a prison break and we need to conduct an investigation. Lu Hong stopped the two of them. Prison break. Lu Jiwei blinked in slight astonishment. At this moment, Xiao Chao spoke up. Captain Lu, you might want to ask Qin Yi. Last night he showed us what a reasoning genius is all about. Yeah, he's truly an S-grade elite student from Liangzhou University. He just helped us crack several cases with ease. Right. We should have young Qin take a look. He will definitely be able to figure out this case. The officers who had closed cases with Qin Yi's help were praising him non-stop, all recommending him to handle the situation. Praised by everyone, Qin Yi felt quite proud. Puffing out his chest, he said, Uncle Lu, please let me take a look. I cannot shirk my responsibility when it comes to such matters. Talents should be used in the right place, shouldn't they? Lu Hong frowned slightly, as he really didn't like Qin Yi. He had already searched the area with his own investigation system, and came up empty. The adversary had not left any strange traces. It was as though they had vanished into thin air. Lu Hong was not a stubborn man. If he couldn't find any leads himself, he was willing to let someone capable help. Fine, if you can really handle it. Lu Hong gave a nod, allowing Qin Yi to enter. However, for some unknown reason, the person who came to mind was Xiang Beifei, who was still in the training room. Because the one in cell 5 was none other than Wan Qiu, the mute bank robber that Xiang Beifei had mentioned yesterday. At that time, Xiang Beifei had only glanced at Wan Qiu before reminding him to check out the situation at Qianhe Bridge. Doubting yet curious, Lu Hong sent out the mechanical raven to search, and indeed they found Wan Qiu's accomplice in the piers of Qianhe Bridge. The case was not yet completed, thus Wan Qiu was temporarily held here. Lu Hong still vividly remembered what Xiang Beifei said to him before heading to the training room yesterday. Be careful, this person is not so simple. At that time, Lu Hong didn't take it to heart, knowing the power of the enforcement office. It was nearly impossible for criminals to escape through their systems, so he didn't dwell on it. Yet today, an incident occurred. Should we ask Beifei to come here? Lu Hong did not trust the boastful Qin Yi to find the criminals. He had more faith in Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei had a very special ability and also possessed a remarkable recognition talent, evident from the Lai Wuying incident. Lu Hong didn't immediately go to find Xiang Beifei because Qin Yi was also there. He needed to know what Qin Yi's reasoning was before deciding whether to seek out Xiang Beifei. All law enforcement officers were in the hallway of the detention room, watching Qin Yi. Qin Yi walked into room 5 with his head held high, looking around the detention room. The room wasn't very big, about 10 square meters, with only a bed and not even a table. He scanned the ceiling light and the bedsheets. There was nowhere to hide. After a thorough check, Qin Yi found nothing amiss. At this moment, a prompt appeared on Qin Yi's system. Host, please note, the extracted talent has only 30 minutes left. Please clarify how the two prisoners escaped within the last 30 minutes. A sense of dread washed over Qin Yi. Extracting someone else's talent was time-limited, and he had to complete the task provided by the system within the set time. Otherwise, it would be considered a task failure, and the extracted talent would return to the original person. This is bad, he exclaimed. Qin Yi had already solved 9 cases with only 1 case left. He had planned to choose an easy one for the last case but did not expect to stumble upon this incident. Just now, carried away by the law enforcement officer's high spirits and their praises, he walked in, and the system automatically assumed he took this case as his 10th one. However, he was now completely clueless. Qin Yi, have you found anything? Ma Feiguang asked from behind. Don't rush him. Qin Yi is an S-level reasoning talent. He'll definitely find a way, said Xiao Chao, who was very optimistic about this Liangzhou University genius. especially since Qin Yi had just helped him solve a case. Right, we're lucky he's here tonight. Other officers echoed, looking expectantly at Qin Yi. Lucky my ass. Qin Yi felt like cursing. The 9 cases he'd solved were basically ready to be cracked, and he had merely stolen other people's efforts to showcase them as his own. The problem was, this case was sudden and lacked any leads. He was in a difficult position now. It was already too late to refuse. The system had started the countdown. Isn't there surveillance in the detention room?
Він її інвуйрет.
There is, but this guy came prepared. We haven't finished searching him yet, Ma Feiguang replied, holding a mobile device, projecting the images from the detention room into midair. The surveillance had 2 feeds, one from the hallway outside the detention room and one from inside room 5. The footage showed LV He with a bald head sneaking from the interrogation room to the hallway, searching until he found room 5. He then spat out something strange from his mouth, and a thick smoke obscured the surveillance from both the detention room and the hallway, making it impossible to see anything. By the time the smoke cleared, the person was gone. The surveillance provided no insight into how the 2 vanished. Qin Yi silently wiped off sweat, walked to the wall, and tapped it. From the current situation, these 2 criminals have probably already left this detention room. They likely have the ability to pass through walls. However, Lu Hong interjected coldly. They couldn't possibly pass through walls. Do you think the detention room walls in the Enforcers building can be breached just like that? They can't pass through walls? Qin Yi was taken aback. Lu Jiwei explained, the walls of the detention room were designed by an SR-level architect from the Liangzhou Alliance, someone with extremely strong building abilities, a god-refining stage expert. Unless one's cultivation is higher than his, it's impossible to leave the range of the walls, no matter what method is used. There is only one exit, which is precisely the way we came in. The prison constructed by an SR-level practitioner was incredibly formidable, instantly nullifying abilities like teleportation and other system powers. The system had level suppression, and powers wielded by awakeners of lower-level systems would hardly be effective against those from higher-level systems. The prisoner locked up here was named Wan Qiu, and he had only awakened an R-level system. So it's like that. Qin Yi began to feel uneasy. He had planned to bluff his way through by phasing through walls or teleporting, but that path had been completely blocked by the SR-level constructor. He glanced at his system again, 7 minutes left. At this moment, his reasoning talent score had already started to drop. It fell from 121 to 93. Damn, his reasoning talent was about to become ineffective. Qin Yi felt flustered, but with so many eyes on him, he couldn't possibly do anything else. He feigned composure and then said with certainty, then the most likely explanation is that they left through invisibility. That was the only explanation possible. However, at this time, the other law enforcement officers looked at him with strange expressions. What's wrong? Did I say something incorrect? Qin Yi asked, feeling guilty. Lu Hong pointed toward the corridor of the containment cell and said, see the door at the end of the corridor? That door is the masterpiece of that SR constructor, and any disguise, no matter who uses it or how, will be stripped away when passing through that door. What kind of SR constructor is this? More like an SB constructor. What was the point in building such a sophisticated prison? Just to make a fool of me. Qin Yi internally cursed the constructor's ancestors over and over. He was the one everyone had placed their high hopes on. If not for this SB constructor, he could have made up something on the spot and muddled through since the law enforcement officers didn't know how the criminal had escaped. That way, whatever nonsense he spouted would have seemed credible. But this SB constructor had to block him in every way. Lu Hong looked at Qin Yi coldly and said, don't you have strong reasoning abilities? Can't you deduce the details from all these aspects? Qin Yi's face turned red. He had only extracted someone else's reasoning skills, not their memories. Besides, he was not a professional law enforcement officer. How could he understand so much? By now, his talent value had dropped to 59. Qin Yi, don't get nervous. Just show the same confidence you did when you helped us solve the case earlier. It will be all right. Xiao Chao said from the side. I've already returned the reasoning talent to you guys. How could it still be all right? Qin Yi cursed internally. You haven't got a clue, have you? Lu Hong pressed, staring at Qin Yi. Qin Yi bit his lip, still not giving up. Give me a moment to think. Then think, Xiao Wei. Go get Beifei over here. He might have an idea about this, Lu Hong said. Beifei? The law enforcement officers here remembered Xiang Beifei and knew he was just an N-level awakener. Xiao Chao spoke from the side. Captain, Beifei is just an N-level awakener. Will it be useful to bring him here? Yeah. If even our detective genius Qin Yi tonight can't figure this out, what good would a high school student do? Ma Feiguang also chimed in. Right, if even an S-level like Qin Yi can't deduce it, then he probably has no chance either. The other law enforcement officers nodded in agreement. Qin Yi, though he couldn't reason it out himself, seeing someone else's support, felt more confident and said, Uncle Lu, even an S-class like me, and you are at a loss with this case. What can he possibly do? Can an N-class really be better than the two of us? Lu Hong was also an S-class awakener. Qin Yi intended to align himself with Lu Hong. However, Lu Hong paid no attention to this fellow but repeated to Lu Jiwei, Xiao Wei, go call him over. Okay, Dad. Lu Jiwei put away her notebook and ran outside. About 2 minutes later, Xiang Beifei was dragged here by Lu Jiwei, who had pulled and tugged him along. What's the meaning of this? I need to cultivate. Xiang Beifei was training well in the training room when Lu Jiwei came over, and without saying anything else, she dragged him here. The problem was, he was no match for Lu Jiwei now and had no chance to resist. There's a case here. Since your reasoning ability is top-notch, come and take a look for us. Lu Jiwei had wanted to see who between Xiang Beifei and Qin Yi had better reasoning ability, but Xiang Beifei didn't want to get involved. Now she had a good excuse, and she suddenly got excited. Seeing Xiang Beifei, Qin Yi's eyes darkened, and he said with a cold sneer, What can an N-class like him figure out? Xiao Wei, you still hold hope for him, but he's probably just talking nonsense. You were mostly wrong in your reasoning just now, too, Lu Jiwei kindly reminded him. Qin Yi's face turned various shades of red and pale, but he then said, You should think of it this way. Both Uncle Lu and I are S-class, and if we can't figure it out, then he has even less of a chance. Who knows? Lu Jiwei thought of Lai Wuying's matter. Qin Yi snorted lightly. Then let's go. Let me see what you're capable of. I bet the moment you open your mouth it'll be about passing through walls, invisibility. Right? Qin Yi inwardly hoped Xiang Beifei would make similar claims, so his previous reasoning wouldn't seem too foolish. Xiang Beifei, unaware of what had happened, asked in confusion, Could someone explain to me what exactly happened here? Haha. Do you think we are all gathered here for a party? Qin Yi said in a sarcastic tone. Lu Hong ignored Qin Yi, but watched Xiang Beifei with great expectation and explained, The convict Wan Qiu we captured yesterday has escaped from prison. Escaped from prison? Xiang Beifei walked to the entrance of detention cell number 5, poked his head inside for a look but retracted it just 2 seconds later. Seeing that he didn't even enter the cell, Qin Yi sneered to himself. This guy doesn't understand anything. Does he really think he can infer anything by doing this? Daydreaming. Xiang Beifei scanned the corridor with a glance and then said, Uncle Lu, you didn't check beneath your feet. Upon hearing this, Qin Yi immediately seized the opportunity to mock. Is this your reasoning ability? Checking beneath your feet? Are you suggesting looking at the floor tiles? Don't you know that no convict can pass through walls to leave? Checking the floor tiles. That's hilarious. He completely forgot that he had just speculated Wan Qiu had escaped through the walls. Lu Hong said, I have checked already, whether inside the cells or the corridor. I have checked all the floor tiles, even scanned them. I'm not talking about floor tiles. Xiang Beifei walked a few steps along the corridor. The floor tiles of the corridor Uncle Lu has checked that I'm certain of. But he glanced among the crowd and then laid eyes on Qin Yi, casually pointing at Qin Yi and saying, You didn't check his shoe soles. With Xiang Beifei pointing like that, Qin Yi instantly grew angry. What do you mean? Are you saying I'm their accomplice? I came here to solve the case. Do you dare to doubt me? The convict is under your shoe sole. Xiang Beifei looked at Qin Yi. Lu Hong realized something and was slightly taken aback. Fei Ye, scan his shoes. Lu Hong commanded sternly. Swish. Fei Ye's eyes shone with a red light. Immediately after, Lu Hong was shocked. He's actually hiding here. Lu Hong glared at Qin Yi coldly. Qin Yi, suddenly targeted by Lu Hong, was also startled and asked without understanding, Uncle Lu, what do you mean? Take the chewing gum off your shoe sole. Lu Hong said unequivocally. Chewing gum on my shoe sole? There's no chewing gum under my shoes. Qin Yi, puzzled by the question, instinctively lifted his foot and looked at the sole, only to be shocked a moment later. Somehow, a piece of chewing gum had really stuck to the bottom of his shoe. Lu Hong waved his hand, and a swipe of spiritual power passed over, lifting the chewing gum into midair. Then, with a horizontal chop, the sharp edge of the flame sliced the chewing gum in half. Crack! The chewing gum burst open, and two figures tumbled out from it, looking very embarrassed. What? Qin Yi's eyes almost popped out. How could they be hiding in there? Xiao Chao and the other law enforcement officers also exclaimed in shock, utterly astonished. How could people be hidden inside chewing gum? What kind of system's ability was this? Moreover, how did Xiang Beifei know? To be clear, just a moment ago, Qin Yi, S-class genius of Liangzhou University, had gone through a series of reasoning, yet he had not found any trace of the two prisoners attempting to escape, and among them, each law enforcement officer possessed unique skills tailored to dealing with criminals, especially the most experienced S-class awakener, Lu Hong, who was present. Yet, even with the combination of 3 S-class awakeners and a bunch of R-class law enforcement officers, they had no clue about the jailbreak and were at their wits' end. But then this N-grade Beifei just arrived, took less than 2 minutes, and casually found the prisoners. It was simply too incredible. How on earth had Beifei reasoned it out? How had he deduced that the two suspects were hiding under Qin Yi's shoe? And how had he noticed that there was a piece of chewing gum on the bottom of the shoe? All faces were filled with disbelief. Even the S-class prodigy, Qin Yi, was stunned. A series of question marks flew around in their minds. But no matter how much they thought about it, they couldn't understand the logic. They quickly realized that only Xiang Beifei could answer this question. However, by the time they thought to ask Xiang Beifei, they discovered he had already disappeared. Where's the person? Where's Beifei? There! Everyone looked closely, and Xiang Beifei was walking back the way he came. Hey, wait! Where are you going? Lu Jiwei called out anxiously from behind. Cultivating, do not disturb. With his hands in his pockets, Xiang Beifei walked along the corridor, his departing footsteps calm and serene, like a leaf fluttering with the wind, leisurely and carefree. His slender and skinny silhouette was elongated by the corridor lights, exuding an indescribable stylishness and elegance. He disappeared at the end of the corridor without turning his head, leaving behind a group of people, shocked and staring at one another. This young man's silhouette, could it really be that handsome, to casually crack a case and leave without a trace? But then again, after solving the case, at least explain a bit. At the very least, tell us how you knew they were hiding there. Hey, is solving such an important case really such a waste of your time? The law enforcement officers looked at each other without a word, silent. The doubts in their minds were still not resolved, making them especially uncomfortable. How exactly did Beifei know that the criminals were hiding under Qin Yi's feet? They needed Xiang Beifei's answer, but it seemed that Xiang Beifei had no intention of staying longer at all, from being reluctantly dragged there by Lu Jiwei to leaving after cracking the case. Not even staying for 2 minutes. It was as if he were just a passerby happening upon this place, solving a case that no one else could resolve, yet offering no further explanation. Having done the deed, he shook off his sleeves and left, his merits and fame deeply concealed. Is this what they call a true master? This kid? Lu Hong couldn't help but laugh and cry. Is cultivation really that urgent? Qin Yi was mocking you to your face. At least throw back a couple of sarcastic remarks. What a perfect opportunity, and you don't retort. Forget it. This kid's personality doesn't seem to be one that strives to win at all costs. Lu Hong looked over at Qin Yi. Qin Yi's face was extremely ugly, probably because Xiang Beifei's sudden arrival had stolen his thunder. His complexion was now like the liver of a pig. Looking at Qin Yi, Lu Hong suddenly realized Beifei not mocking Qin Yi was actually the biggest mockery of him. After all, Qin Yi is an S-rank elite student at Liangzhou University, a future star of hope, just a moment ago hailed by the law enforcement officials as a super detective with godlike case-solving skills. They had lauded him to the skies. But this favored son of heaven, when faced with this case, spouted a lot of nonsense, and ended up making a fool of himself without getting anything right. Then Beifei was reluctantly dragged over by Lu Jiwei. With a casual glance, he identified two prisoners trying to escape and directly solved the case. After that, he left without bothering to explain a word. He didn't even bother to compete with someone like Qin Yi. That was already the greatest mockery for an S-rank genius like Qin Yi. Although Lu Hong himself hadn't solved the case either, he hadn't shown off his reasoning skills. With Beifei shining so brightly, he was more than happy. There was no room for envy, let alone feeling mocked. But it was different for Qin Yi. I knew it. Beifei really is hiding his light under a bushel. Lu Jiwei's eyes were gleaming, and she gripped her notebook even tighter. Reasoning talent top-notch. I must learn from him. At this moment, Qin Yi was almost grinding his teeth to dust. This bastard. Isn't he an N-rank awakener? How the hell did he deduce that? It's unacceptable. It's too much to bear. The genius image he had so hardly constructed at the law enforcement brigade in the evening was collapsing like a landslide. Compared with Beifei, what was he, Qin Yi, but an egg? He came to solve the case with much fanfare, only to end up with a whimper instead of a bang, while someone reluctantly got dragged over, glanced twice, and closed the case. How could he compare? What's most despicable is, why, when that guy was leaving, his damn silhouette looked so cool. He often shone as the favored son of heaven among the freshmen at Liangzhou University, constantly radiating brilliance across the campus, going on stage to receive awards on various occasions until his hands were full of trophies. But why the heck can't he look as cool as that bastard? Qin Yi was filled with jealousy, jealous to a splintering degree. No, that cool silhouette must be learned and remembered for the next time. However, at this moment, Xiao Chao came to his senses and pointed at Qin Yi, loudly exclaiming, "Qin Yi, I thought so highly of you, and you turn out to be a co-conspirator with these two men." As soon as Ma Feiguang heard this, he immediately snapped back to his senses and shouted, "I get it now. You went to so much trouble to help us with the case tonight just to gain our trust. So we'd regard you as a super detective. Then, after they escaped, you knew we'd definitely look to you to solve the case. Following that, you'd have the opportunity to get those two out. So that's it, you're so crafty. And to think I believed you had a reasoning talent. I was really blind." "Exactly. I was wondering why you were so eager to help us with the investigation. Turns out you're nothing but a jackal." The law enforcement officers who had lost their reasoning talent had been unable to connect logic, but now as their reasoning talent gradually returned, they cobbled together a tale of a cunning criminal conspiracy, openly repairing roads while covertly channeling through the way, a grand drama of a joint prison break. And Qin Yi was the key mastermind. Tie him up. Xiao Chao and Ma Feiguang didn't say another word and pinned Qin Yi down. Qin Yi was still gritting his teeth at Xiang Beifei when he was suddenly pressed to the ground, completely dumbfounded. "Hold on. This isn't what you think. Listen to me explain. I really had no idea. Heaven and earth as his witnesses. He only wanted to put on a show in front of Lu Jiwei and Xiang Beifei. He truly had no clue what was going on. However, Xiao Chao and Ma Feiguang didn't care about the details and captured him first to sort things out later. Uncle Lu, your wise eyes see the truth. You must know I'm not involved. Uncle Lu, you must discern the truth." Although Qin Yi was an S rank, He was a student of the liberal arts college and not skilled in combat, incapable of resisting, now desperately calling out to Lu Hong in panic. Lu Hong knew that this was very likely unrelated to Qin Yi. This fellow simply liked to show off and, inadvertently, had been used by others. But he kept a stern face, adopting an all-business demeanor. Whether you're an accomplice or not isn't for you to decide. Lock him up. Interrogate him thoroughly first. Qin Yi had to prove his innocence, but Lu Hong knew Qin Yi wasn't involved and didn't want to waste time interrogating him. He intended to interrogate LV He and Wan Chou first, so he ignored Qin Yi. As a result, Qin Yi was thrown directly into the detention room by Xiao Chao. No matter how much he tried to explain, there was nothing he could do. He was going to spend the night here. At this time, he was still seething with anger. Today, at the enforcement office, an N-level high school student had slapped his face thoroughly. He, a prestigious Liangzhou University student, an S-rank talent, had lost all his dignity. Not to mention, this was his first time ever being thrown in jail. Humiliation, indeed. Even though he knew he was innocent, he still felt the disgrace. Being a gifted reasoning talent and yet being treated as a suspect. Tomorrow, his family and the university must be notified. Imagine, a prominent new figure among Liangzhou University's freshmen, not having identified the criminal, yet being treated as the suspect. This was a stain on his life. But when he checked his system interface, he was surprised to discover a hint. You've clarified how the two suspects escaped from prison, successfully solved the 10th case, and thus completed the task flawlessly. The system task is completed. Qin Yi was overjoyed. He clearly wasn't the one solving the 10th case tonight, so how did the system still consider it completed by him? After some thought, Qin Yi came to a conclusion. In the system's instructions, it hadn't specified that he had to solve the case by himself. Solving a case inherently involved gathering clues from various sources. There is no detective who solves cases entirely on their own. They must get help from others. Be it witnesses or evidence provided by law enforcement officers, all these are within the scope of assistance from others. Even interrogating suspects counts as solving a case with the help of suspects. For this task, the system only required solving the case, not who did the solving. This means as long as a case is resolved, the task is considered complete. And just now, Xiang Beifei had swiftly unraveled the case right before the task's deadline. That's the same as helping him complete the task. Who would have thought? Who would have thought? A blessing in disguise. Wahahaha. Qin Yi couldn't help but burst into laughter. He was completely agitated, his excitement merging with his agitation. Host has completed the task. 1 amulet awarded. Would you like to claim your reward? Xiang Beifei, oh Xiang Beifei, you've earned fame, but I didn't lose out either. Qin Yi smugly selected yes. Then, Qin Yi's face turned grim. Qin Yi's forehead darkened. Damn it. System, you're playing me. If the task failed, just say it failed, why claim I completed it? Damn it. Do you find this amusing? Qin Yi completely lost it and started cursing out loud. He had no idea where his reward had gone, nor did he take the time to think it through. Assuming it was just a system error and that he had misunderstood the task rules, instantly becoming utterly enraged. Xiang Beifei was seriously swinging his fists in the training room, pondering the violent gust he had just grasped. Woof, woof, woof. Xiaohe barked cheerfully. He turned around and saw that Xiaohe was holding an amulet. Oh, this thing. Xiang Beifei nodded slightly. It was a late-stage chi-controlling item which could be used to light up the stars. He still needed to find a few more system rewards to gain his third ability. But he wasn't in a hurry for now. He first needed to reach the mid-stage of chi-controlling, and then he could light up the third star. Xiang Beifei resumed practicing for a while until Xiaohe reminded him that it was already 11 o'clock. Having returned home so late yesterday, grandfather was worried and had stayed up waiting for him. Probably waiting again today, he decided to go home early. He got up, took a shower in the changing room, and then left the training room. Aha! He had only taken a few steps when Lu Jiwei appeared in front of him, lively as ever. I didn't interrupt your practice. she quickly said. Xiang Beifei responded. Then, could you quietly tell me about your reasoning process earlier? Lu Jiwei lowered her voice and waved the notebook in her hand, her face full of a thirst for knowledge. She wanted to know how Xiang Beifei had deduced that those two people were hiding in the tiles. But when Xiang Beifei had left earlier, he had asked her not to disturb him. Desperate to learn deductive skills from Xiang Beifei, she had no choice but to respectfully wait outside, almost dying of anticipation. Xiang Beifei was somewhat exasperated. How could he teach this? Yesterday, when he saw Wan Qiu's reclamation system, he had already warned Lu Hong to be cautious of this man. But at that time it was just a caution. He couldn't tell Lu Hong what the man's system was, and he still couldn't say now. However, Lu Jiwei kept staring at him intently, making him somewhat uncomfortable. I'm your guardian envoy. Just teach me a little, just a little bit. Lu Jiwei was earnest in her plea. Xiang Beifei sighed. All right, it depends on your insight. I'll roughly analyze it for you. How much you can learn depends on your fate, he said. Tell me. I'm taking notes. Lu Jiwei nodded vigorously. Wait. Let me listen to your analytical process too. Lu Hong approached from somewhere, smiling as he looked at Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei's performance was all observed by him. Uncle Lu, did they confess? Xiang Beifei asked. They confessed, but I still want to know how you deduced it. Lu Hong himself possessed an S-grade investigation system, but this type of system relied on clues to track, and the coordination between Wan Qiu and LV, he was so seamless that they left no traces. Although he had interrogated them about the incident, he still had not grasped Xiang Beifei's thought process in solving the case. He needed to know what Xiang Beifei's reasoning process was. All right, it's actually not that difficult. Xiang Beifei prepared his phrasing in his mind, then said, First, this case had to be reasoned from Wan Qiu's system. Initially, I also did not know Wan Qiu's system, so I could only conjecture, if he was digging under the bank for the vault, then he might possess a system related to digging. Combining that with him hiding his accomplice under the bridge pier, I thought he might concoct the same method again. Lu Jiwei quickly wrote down everything Xiang Beifei said. Then why were you so sure they weren't hiding in the detention room? Why didn't you search the detention room? Lu Jiwei never quite figured this out because just after Xiang Beifei had found out what had happened here, he stuck his head into the detention room, pulled it back out after just 2 seconds, and didn't even bother to go inside. Xiang Beifei explained, That's because I trust Uncle Lu's investigative abilities. Uncle Lu's Raven is really incredible. In such a small detention room, if they were hiding there, how could they possibly deceive Uncle Lu? After all, he's an S-rank powerhouse. Killing those petty thieves in an instant with various scanning methods activated, where could those two possibly have escaped to? Lu Jiwei suddenly realized and then turned to her father excitedly. Dad, is what Beifei said right? It should. It probably is. Lu Hong suddenly felt embarrassed by the praise. Although Uncle Lu didn't immediately think about how Wan Qiu and LV he mysteriously disappeared, actually, if Uncle Lu just had some time, he would definitely have searched them, and then he would have figured it out. Xiang Beifei gave Lu Hong another way out. Dad, is that so? Lu Jiwei looked at Lu Hong expectantly. Roughly. Probably is. Lu Hong laughed awkwardly and could only take the hint, else he would appear too undignified in front of his daughter. Actually, Qini hadn't gone to the detention room at all that evening. He was with Lu Jiwei the whole time and had an alibi. After the incident, Lu Hong was the first one on the scene, by which time the two were already gone. Normally, Lu Hong wouldn't have suspected Qini. If it weren't for Beifei mentioning it, he might have really overlooked it. Keep going, Lu Hong said. First, I guess their system. Since they could dig under the ground to rob a bank, couldn't they also dig through tiles? The walls of the enforcement office are very sturdy, but the tiles are just ordinary tiles. There's only one way out, so they must rely on someone else's power, meaning they can only rely on outsiders to escape from prison. Xiang Beifei explained it all logically. Lu Jiwei grew even more impressed and asked again, Then why did you think of Qin Yi's shoe soles first? If it were me, I would also choose Qin Yi because he isn't a law enforcement officer. If they chose someone like Uncle Lu who is an S-rank person, that would be like walking into a trap. Choosing other law enforcement officers wouldn't be safe either, as law enforcement officer systems definitely relate to abilities like handling cases and investigating. Without being sure of their abilities, risks could easily arise, and thus outsiders are the only option. I knew Qin Yi should have been helping you solve the case last night, but those two, detained from the start, definitely didn't know about Qin Yi's deductive abilities and thus regarded him as just an ordinary awakener, making him the best choice. Xiang Beifei's explanation was rational and well-founded. However, Lu Hong grasped the essential point and asked, "It seems you had already ruled out Qin Yi as their accomplice early on?" Xiang Beifei said incredulously. "Him?" Lu Hong paused. "Him." These two words, plain and simple, yet they carried a profound meaning. So, to this S-rank genius from Liangzhou University, a freshman no less, Qin Yi didn't even qualify to be an accomplice for Wan Qiu and LV He in Beifei's eyes. This boy wasn't uncompetitive. He simply disdained to lower his status to argue with someone like Qin Yi. They simply weren't on the same level. Lu Hong was deeply moved. It turned out that Qin Yi had never really been looked at properly by Xiang Beifei from the beginning to the end. For Xiang Beifei, no matter how these people tried to hide, their system interface would always shine brightly. He looked around and then noticed two system interfaces on the soles of Qin Yi's shoes. There was no need for reasoning. And the act of creating a space in chewing gum, that was all written on Wan Qiu's reclamation system. The system was costly when creating a space in small objects, but the chewing gum was something Wan Qiu had created long ago, serving as his last resort escape tool. The legendary Xianxia Black technology, storage ring, could create a vast space. So, a storage chewing gum. What's so surprising about that? Dad, is what Beifei said the same as what you interrogated? Lu Jiwei asked urgently. Just now, to be safe, Lu Hong did not let any irrelevant people come into contact with Wan Qiu and LV He, including his daughter, so Lu Jiwei still did not know the true facts of the matter. Lu Hong nodded slightly. Wan Qiu is a mute, but LV He was stubborn at first, but after I asked Uncle Chang to talk to him, LV He confessed everything. Chang Shan, that's the veteran officer with the S-rank, turned back and your ashore system, and he had the cultivation of the late meridian opening phase. For ordinary petty thieves, if others couldn't get anything out of them during interrogation, they would hand them over to him. Usually, after exchanging a few words with him, they'd be touched and confess everything easily. Lu Hong continued, LV He and Wan Qiu, who was arrested yesterday, are friends. After Wan Qiu was arrested, he was planning to rescue him before Wan Qiu was transferred from the law enforcement office to prison, because once in the prison, there would be no chance at all, so he planned tonight's jailbreak. Any criminal who entered the Alliance prison had virtually zero chance of escape. But getting into the law enforcement squad was not that easy, especially the custody room. Then did LV He reveal what his system is? Xiang Beifei asked. Lu Hong shook his head. No, the test results for LV He's system came out as R grade, and it would require a system 2 grades higher to interrogate him. An R-grade system was already considered powerful, with the system itself having self-protection capabilities. Even if some interrogation techniques were used, it would be very difficult to make LV He confess everything. Of course, with an SR-grade interrogation system, there would be ways to forcibly break through the confidentiality defense of an R-grade system. However, SR-grade awakeners were too rare, and this small law enforcement office didn't have one. Lu Hong said, LV He didn't reveal his system, but he said he had the confidence to unlock any lock, so I guess his awakening is related to a lock-breaking system. He was deliberately arrested today for cell phone fraud, and then he confessed very directly to his fraud, so we didn't take it seriously, preparing to follow the procedures. But then, when others weren't paying attention, he unlocked his handcuffs and slipped towards the custody room. Lu Hong's guess was actually very close to the truth. LV He's awakening was indeed the lock-free system, which was indeed powerful. Unfortunately, LV He overestimated his abilities. Although he managed to unlock the door keeping Wan Qiu, it triggered an alarm. Luckily, he knew Wan Qiu's capabilities. Wan Qiu could carve out a space anywhere, and at the instant the alarm was triggered, they used Wan Qiu's reclamation system to burrow into the corridor's floor tiles. Wan Qiu's reclamation system could not break through the walls built by an SR-grade builder, so they had to start with the floor tiles. The floor tiles were just decorative, utterly ordinary with no protective capabilities. The protective layer was the cement underneath that they couldn't dig through. The law enforcement personnel quickly arrived. They rushed towards the custody room first, overlooking the tiles in the corridor. At this time, they saw Qin Yi. Qin Yi was the only person in the corridor who wasn't from the enforcement office. So while Lu Hong was scanning the custody room, they used the dugout tiles to get under Qin Yi's feet. Then, they threw a piece of chewing gum from under the tiles, sticking it to the bottom of Qin Yi's shoe. Wan Qiu's reclamation system had already carved out a space inside the gum. So, they leaped from under the tiles into the space in the gum, simultaneously filling in the space left in the tiles. When Lu Hong began scanning the corridor tiles again, the two of them had already avoided detection. Lu Hong did not immediately think to scan the people there. After all, Qin Yi and the others had arrived later. It didn't make sense, both emotionally and rationally, that they would hide there. The plan concocted by Wan Qiu and LV he was nearly flawless. As long as Qin Yi left the law enforcement office that night, they could be smuggled out, equating to a successful jailbreak. But what they didn't expect was for Beifei to unexpectedly intervene. Xiang Beifei was dragged here by Lu Jiwei, and he reluctantly checked the scene, spotting them right away. Their jailbreak plan was crushed on the spot. Dad, I really want to know, could they pass through the corridor's security gate with the chewing gum disguise? Lu Jiwei asked. Yes. Lu Hong nodded seriously. Tonight's incident just made me realize this loophole. Although the corridor's gate is built to SR standards, which can remove all kinds of disguises, but it cannot detect people hidden in small spaces. Regarding this, I need to report to my superiors and have this loophole sealed. Beifei, you've made a great contribution tonight. Xiang Beifei tilted his head, somewhat surprised. Beifei, your talent would be wasted if you didn't become a city guardian. Lu Jiwei became the very picture of a die-hard fan of Xiang Beifei. Although her system level and cultivation were higher than Xiang Beifei's, his deductive reasoning was truly first-rate. What are you talking about? Beifei's talent should be used in higher places. If there's a chance in the future, he should work at the Jiuzhou Alliance. Lu Hong saw great potential in Xiang Beifei's future. It's very difficult to get into the Jiuzhou Alliance, Lu Jiwei muttered. We'll talk about it in the future. Xiang Beifei did not care about working for the Jiuzhou Alliance, as he wanted to focus on cultivating and then take the college entrance exam to get into Liangzhou University and, by the way, earn some money. Being neither arrogant nor impetuous is a good thing, right? Here's the reward you earned for assisting in the capture of Lai Wuing. I've applied for it for you, 20,000 yuan. Don't lose it. Lu Hong handed a check from the Alliance to Xiang Beifei. 20,000 yuan. Xiang Beifei's eyes lit up. Thank you, Uncle Lu, Xiang Beifei said, taking the check. It should be me thanking you, Lu Hong said with a smile. He then looked at his own system. If Xiang Beifei is willing to make a feedback, you can get one advanced pill. Lu Hong felt quite anxious inside. Beifei, would he really make a feedback to him? After a long thought, he cautiously asked, Beifei, how are you progressing with your cultivation of rapid flame? Still learning. Holding the check, Xiang Beifei glanced unintentionally at Lu Hong's system and was a little surprised. He discovered that Lu Hong's system had issued a mission to assassinate him. Xiang Beifei frowned slightly. However, seeing that Lu Hong had rejected the assassination option, he felt a bit more at ease. Lucky Uncle Lu is a good man. As an S-level Meridian opening phase practitioner, if Lu Hong had chosen the assassination and seizure option, Xiang Beifei would have been in danger. Fortunately, Lu Hong had his own principles. But not taking that route, he must be quite eager at the moment. Lu Hong said, You helped foil a jailbreak last night. I'll apply for another reward for you. Also, I'll give you some more items for protection, as a way of saying thanks for last night. Uncle Lu, You already gave me the Azure Light Armor and a Chi-replenishing pill yesterday, Xiang Beifei pointed out. No worries, having extra means of saving your life is always good. This is a Thunderfire crystal. It contains the essence of my punch and has the power of a mid-stage chi controlling. You can crush it for self-defense. And this Flame Dragon escape for running away can carry you out in an instant over 200 meters. Lu Hong handed the two items to Xiang Beifei. Both were system rewards he had carefully selected, which Xiang Beifei could use immediately. Since they were not items from Xiang Beifei's own system, their potency would be significantly reduced, and since Xiang Beifei's cultivation level wasn't high, Lu Hong couldn't give him anything more advanced or else he wouldn't be able to use it. Last time, someone named Su Yang attacked Xiang Beifei, and now he worried that Xiang Beifei would run into trouble. Xiang Beifei was quite surprised. He was still thinking about how to light up the constellation, but Lu Hong had unintentionally paved the way for him. With the Lei Fire Crystal and the Flame Dragon escape, along with yesterday's Azure Light Armor and Chi-replenishing pill, these four items could precisely serve as spiritual power crystals for the mid-stage of chi controlling. That meant, as long as his realm reached the mid-stage of chi controlling, he could immediately light up the next constellation in the Spirit Gathering book. Although he had Chun Gang's Thousand Faces/Moon, which was a spiritual power crystal for the initial stage of Meridian opening, he planned to save it until he entered the Meridian opening stage to use it. Qin Yi's amulet was for the later stage of chi controlling, and it should be saved to light up the constellation for that later stage. Previously, he had been wondering where to get the mid-stage chi-controlling spiritual power crystal, and Uncle Lu had directly solved that for him. Uncle Lu, this must have cost a lot of system points, right? Xiang Beifei asked. It's alright, you've helped me a lot these days. I should really thank you. Oh, here, take this too, a spiritual perception pill. It can enhance the perception of various aspects of the body. I often use it to chase criminals. In the past few days, Lu Hong had given Xiang Beifei a total of 7 items in exchange, spending over 3,000 investigation points. That evening, his system had forcibly launched a mission, whereby Xiang Beifei had obtained 2,000 investigation points. Lu Hong not only returned all these system points to Xiang Beifei but also paid extra from his own. Uncle Lu, it was quite expensive, Xiang Beifei said. Uncle also has his own motives. Lu Hong couldn't help but sigh in his heart. He really needed Xiang Beifei's feedback on the rapid flame cultivation, as it determined whether he could advance to the next realm. As long as Xiang Beifei had requests that he could fulfill, he would do his best to accommodate them. Wow, Dad. I'm jealous, Lu Jiwei said enviously from the side. Lu Hong tapped Lu Jiwei's head and said irritably, Jealous of what? Which of these items can you use now? Beifei's cultivation level is not enough, so he needs these. Besides, haven't I given you plenty? Lu Jiwei shrank her head and snickered bashfully. She was at the later stage of chi controlling, and when she first awakened her system as her father, Lu Hong had given her many system items for self-defense, sparing no expense. Thank you, Uncle Lu. Xiang Beifei was not pretentious. He truly needed these items. Lu Hong treated him well, and even if he had his own motives, in Xiang Beifei's view, they were insignificant. Because even before Lu Hong's system had issued the mandatory mission, he had given him many system items, simply out of concern for Xiang Beifei's safety. Lu Hong could have chosen the eradicate and seize approach, simply killing Xiang Beifei once he grasped the rapid flame to take it easily. But he did not do that. Instead, he chose another way, letting Xiang Beifei provide feedback. Honestly, according to the method Lu Hong chose to complete the mission, even if Xiang Beifei blabbed any nonsense as feedback, Lu Hong could not tell if it was true or false, because even Lu Hong's system did not know that rapid flame could be improved. It all depended on Xiang Beifei. Truth be told, Lu Hong could have taken control, but he chose to hand that control over to Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei would naturally not disappoint Lu Hong. In this system world, many people resorted to unscrupulous means to complete system tasks, creating a world full of trickery. People like Chun Gang and Lu Qianrou were numerous. But there were still some upright people who maintained the most basic ethical standards while working on system tasks. Xiang Beifei could see other people's systems, and he could judge who was trustworthy. What he could do was to staunchly protect that trust. He had only been cultivating for a short time, and his realm was still low. Without sufficient strength, Xiang Beifei needed others' help and protection to get through the novice period of the qi-controlling realm. It's late, you should head back. Xiao Wei, you accompany him and be careful on the way. Lu Hong still had work and could not abandon his post. So once again, he entrusted the task of escorting Xiang Beifei to his daughter. Beifei returned home, and his grandfather was indeed waiting for him. Grandfather, you don't need to wait for me. I was doing system tasks, and these past few days, I've been home late. Beifei could only use this excuse to explain. It's all right, I couldn't sleep. Are you hungry? Should I cook something for you? Qingda smiled. Not hungry, I've already eaten. Uncle Lu and the others ordered takeout. That's good, go to sleep soon. You need to wake up early tomorrow. Qingda then returned to his own room. After a brief wash, Beifei closed his door and began to ponder the matters at hand. He now possessed 5 system items: the Spiritual Perception Pill, the Azure Light Armor, the Qi Replenishing Pill, the Flame Dragon Escape, and the Thunderfire Crystal. To light up the 3rd clan constellation, he only needed 4 spiritual power crystals from the mid-stage of Qi controlling. However, he hadn't decided whether to melt them away yet. It was more urgent to advance his cultivation to the mid-stage of Qi controlling. Beifei practiced the Chaos Yin-Yang formula again before resting. In the following days, Beifei didn't visit the enforcement agency because he realized that if he wanted to improve Rapid Flame, with his current spiritual power, it was still very difficult to manage. The spiritual power of Rapid Flame needed to advance further. Therefore, going back to the training room at the enforcement agency was meaningless. Cultivating spiritual power could be performed anywhere. The college entrance examination was drawing nearer, and virtually everyone had already decided whether to pursue the martial or literary Dao. The atmosphere in the school became increasingly tense. Especially for students choosing the literary Dao, their academic subjects were extremely important. The admission threshold for universities was higher for them, hence everyone was seriously reviewing in the last month, barely accepting any tasks issued by the system. In the last 20 days, the school held the final mock exam before the college entrance exam. Both teachers and students took this mock exam very seriously. Li Nanxing, as the headmaster, was no exception. Suddenly, he remembered Beifei. Looking back, it had been a month since the awakening system. The scene of Beifei in his office declaring his intention to apply for Liangzhou University still vividly lingered in his mind. I wonder if this child has made any progress. When Beifei stated his intention to apply to Liangzhou University, Li Nanxing had specifically retrieved Beifei's score from the last mock exam. Beifei's score in the previous mock exam was 292. To stand a chance of getting into Liangzhou University, he needed to add at least another 400 points. His system's first task is to get into Liangzhou University. He should take this mock exam seriously. Surely he can improve by 50 points or so. Li Nanxing walked towards Professor Yang's office.
Professor Yang, excuse me.
Li Nanxing knocked on the door. Headmaster, what brings you here? Yang Hua was typing on his computer and, seeing the headmaster in person, quickly stood up, looking respectfully at Li Nanxing while feeling somewhat apprehensive about why the headmaster had come. It's nothing. I just wanted to ask about something. There's a student in your class named Beifei. What was his score in this mock exam? Li Nanxing asked. Upon hearing that the headmaster was inquiring about Beifei, Yang Hua's expression became uneasy. What's wrong?
Li Nanxing noticet Yang Hua es unusual de menor.
Beifei didn't come to the exam at all this time. Yang Hua said gravely. He didn't come for the exam? Li Nanxing was slightly startled. Yes, he took sick leave during the exam. Yang Hua couldn't mention Xiang Beifei without getting angry. Li Nanxing frowned. Wasn't he supposed to take the Liangzhou University exam? How could he not show up for the exam? Principal, are you joking? With his grades, he still wants to get into Liangzhou University. Because the principal was present, Yang Hua refrained from saying more unpleasant things about Xiang Beifei. Now that graduation was approaching, he was too lazy to bother with Xiang Beifei. Since Xiang Beifei didn't show up for the exam, there was no issue of him holding anyone back. Did he attend class today? He did. I just saw him. I was about to ask him some questions. Principal, are you looking for him for something? Yang Hua was puzzled, not understanding why the principal would look for Xiang Beifei. It's nothing important, you're busy. I won't disturb you. Li Nanqing left the office and went to Xiang Beifei's classroom. Xiang Beifei sat at his desk, one hand propping up his chin, staring blankly out the window. The banyan tree outside the window shaded the summer breeze, accompanied by the light chirping of cicadas, creating harmony. Li Nanfeng saw Xiang Beifei's figure and heaved a slight sigh. This kid, does he look rather melancholic? Indeed, anyone whose first system task was to get into Liangzhou University would not have it easy. Xiang Beifei, come out for a moment, Li Nanqing called out. Principal. Xiang Beifei came back to his senses, shifting his gaze from the banyan tree with some surprise. The other classmates in the room fell silent upon seeing the principal's sudden visit, but when they realized he was actually there for Xiang Beifei and remembered Xiang Beifei had skipped the exam, they felt a bit of schadenfreude. Being called out by the principal was never a good sign. Come take a walk with me. Li Nanqing walked ahead with his hands clasped behind his back, walking along the tree-lined path of the campus. Xiang Beifei followed obediently behind. Li Nanqing sat down on a bench under a tree, looking at Xiang Beifei with slightly furrowed brows. You said you wanted to take the Liangzhou University exam, so why didn't you take this mock exam seriously? Xiang Beifei thought for a moment and said, I had an emergency that day, so I took leave. What emergency could be more important than an exam? You couldn't possibly have gone to do a system task. I remember your system's first task is to get into Liangzhou University, Li Nanqing said. Xiang Beifei kept silent, just lowering his head and pondering. Li Nanqing thought Xiang Beifei avoided meeting his eyes out of guilt and heaved a sigh. I know what you're thinking, he said. Xiang Beifei looked up, his eyes filled with confusion as he gazed at Li Nanqing. Li Nanqing continued, looking at Xiang Beifei's expression. Do you feel that the first system task is too difficult, that you cannot possibly get in, so you've given up on yourself and didn't dare to take part in the mock exam? Given up on himself? Xiang Beifei was somewhat astonished. Li Nanqing spoke earnestly. For an N-level awakener to apply to Liangzhou University, there certainly is difficulty. Your grades weren't good to begin with, and then your system issued you an outrageous task. It's natural to feel hopeless, but that doesn't mean you should give up on yourself.
Principal, E.
You don't have to explain anything. I know that you must be feeling disheartened, even desperate. I understand how you're feeling right now, Li Nanqing said gently. Xiang Beifei, you must have been under a lot of pressure these days, haven't you? Xiang Beifei, it's quite normal to feel great pressure. Anyone whose first system task was to get into Liangzhou University would definitely feel it. Over the past month, you've probably been so stressed you couldn't eat or sleep, constantly doubting whether you could really get into Liangzhou University. That's normal. Many N-level awakeners go through stages of self-doubt. Xiang Beifei, it's okay that your foundation is weak, but improving grades doesn't happen overnight. It's only been a month since your system issued the task, and you haven't persisted long before you're beating a retreat. How can this be acceptable? Li Nanqing patiently advised. You have to remember one thing, N-level awakeners are not useless. When you feel like you can't keep going, think of our Liangzhou's governor Shang Tianxiong. He's an N-level awakener, yet his achievements are comparable to those of an SR-level awakener. But do you think he got into Liangzhou University on his first college entrance exam? Li Nanqing was serious and earnest, slapping the armrest of the chair, his voice ringing strong.
No.
He repeated a year 4 times. Xiang Beifei, he couldn't get a word in edgewise. You've only been preparing for a month and face a little setback, and you're already disheartened and unwilling to even take the exam. With this attitude toward studying, how can you get into Liangzhou University? You've got to pull yourself together. Don't be defeated by setbacks that easily. Li Nanqing raised his voice again. Failure is not scary. What's scary is giving up before you even try. If talent is insufficient, diligence will compensate. Where there's a will, there's a way. Without enduring the cold that penetrates your bones, how can you smell the fragrance of plum blossoms? Li Nanqing earnestly instructed Xiang Beifei, explaining with logic and stirring with emotion. Xiang Beifei, why does it always feel like something is not quite right? Why don't you defend yourself a bit? Li Nanqing asked. Xiang Beifei, all the words have been said by you, what can I add? Seeing Xiang Beifei silent, Li Nanqing continued, I once read a novel called Fight to the Death in the Firmament, an extremely stirring novel. I really like a line from it. 30 years in the East, 30 years in the West, do not belittle the young for being poor. I give this line to you, hoping you will forge ahead and prove yourself to the world with an N-level talent. Xiang Beifei's eyes widened. Fight to the death in the firmament? Just listening to the name of this novel bristles with power. Even the firmament meets its demise. Terrifying to such a degree. The headmaster reads these kinds of novels? Xiang Beifei asked. I like to study various literatures, whether it's classical literature, online fiction, biographies, League chronicles, the contention of 100 schools of thought. Every type of literature has its significance. What books you read isn't important. What matters is learning some principles from them afterwards. Headmaster Li Nanqing, after all, had awakened the S-level Confucian saint system, had the temperament of a Confucian scholar, and studying various literatures was his favorite thing to do. Xiang Beifei nodded thoughtfully. It seemed to make a lot of sense. The reason why I'm telling you so much is because you are Xiang Tianqing's son. I believe the old saying, a tiger father does not have dog sons. If you can't get into university this year, there's always next year, the year after, and the year after that. If you want to measure up to an expert like Xiang Tianqing, you have to be prepared to strive for 4 years. You can't miss any opportunity to test yourself. Only by taking simulated exams can you know what areas you need to improve upon. Understand? Li Nanqing said. I understand, headmaster. I'll work hard. Xiang Beifei nodded. Good. Go back to class now. Li Nanqing said. Xiang Beifei bowed politely to Li Nanqing and then left. Watching Xiang Beifei's retreating figure, Li Nanqing felt some emotion. It seems impossible for him to get into university this year, but I hope I've managed to awaken him. Keep up the effort next year. As a headmaster, he felt it was his responsibility to guide this young man. Xiang Beifei had always held a good impression of Li Nanqing. This was a true exemplar of education, refined and gentle, a model for teachers, imparting knowledge without discrimination. He would patiently guide even an N-level student. One could say he was highly esteemed and respected. However, Li Nanqing didn't quite understand Xiang Beifei, thinking that Beifei's absence from the mock exam was due to despair over unimprovable grades. Xiang Beifei didn't know how to explain himself. But what pleased him was that his recent hard work had not been in vain. These past few days coincided with the mock exams, and he was at a critical point in his cultivation, so he chose to skip the exam. That morning, he finally reached the mid-stage of qi controlling. With the awakening system for a month, he cultivated day and night and finally elevated his cultivation to the mid-stage of qi controlling. This had surpassed all of his classmates. Even the S-level Lu Jiwei and Qin Yi, who were a year older than Beifei and took 5 months to reach the mid-stage of qi controlling, were only at the late stage of qi controlling by the end of their freshman year. Yet, Xiang Beifei had taken only a month to cultivate from an ordinary person to the mid-stage of qi controlling. The most crucial point was that he used 4 spiritual power crystals to activate the third constellation, the D constellation. D2 Mao. Abruptly stop. Source. When Shi Tong Yi. Suddenly arriving, abruptly stopping. Ability. Able to make moving objects suddenly stop. Xiang Beifei had tested this ability. He could stop anything Xiaohe threw towards him in its tracks, and even when Xiaohe lunged at him, he would be frozen in place. However, this ability also had its limits. The duration it could hold depended on its power and was also related to Xiang Beifei's own strength. For those whose cultivation was weaker than his, he could easily stop them. However, for those with higher cultivation, it was difficult to make them abruptly stop, and for those of roughly equal cultivation, it would only briefly pause them. Right now, I can stop a tree solid in place. Even a strong wind can't move it pretty good. Xiang Beifei returned to his seat and continued to look at the banyan tree outside the window. Principal Li Nanxing had thought he was giving up on himself, staring out the window in a daze, but actually, he was practicing the abruptly stop ability. He could now make the trees shaking abruptly stop. Next, he planned to try stopping the blowing wind. That was challenging. Because the wind is intangible and blows over a wide area, when he blocked one side, the wind from the other side would always sneak past and move the tree. The principal was looking for you just now. Are you all right? Kong Xiuwen prodded the daydreaming Xiang Beifei with his pen. I'm fine. Xiang Beifei snapped back to reality. Speaking of which, weren't we agreed on taking the entrance exam for Liangzhou University together? Why did you suddenly give it up? I've been hitting the books hard these days. Kong Xiuwen looked dejected. He had lost 49 strands of hair preparing for the martial arts department of Liangzhou University. He had spent more than 20 strands of hair to exchange for items from the system mall to enhance his focus and intelligence. How much did you score? Xiang Beifei asked. 491 points. Heavenly Tao rewards the diligent. Tearfully moved. Kong Xiuwen held his own test papers, deeply moved by himself. His hair loss had not been in vain. As an S-level, he enjoyed various policy advantages. As long as he reached 500 points, he could enter Liangzhou University, and he was not far from his goal. That's not bad, Xiang Beifei said. Kong Xiuwen lowered his voice and said, Come on, you need to buckle down. My system can exchange items to boost concentration, but that intelligence boost isn't really applicable to others. I can only give you the concentration pills, take them. He passed a small jade bottle from under the desk to Xiang Beifei. No need. I have some. Keep it for yourself. Xiang Beifei shook his head. You have some? Kong Xiuwen looked at him suspiciously. Who gave them to you? My dad was a pioneer. Did you forget? Oh right. That's good. Let's work hard together. Just don't let me down at the crucial moment, Kong Xiuwen said. Don't worry. Xiang Beifei turned his head and continued to work on the banyan tree outside the window. Law Enforcement Squad. This place was always busy. The crime rate in the system world was high, but the abilities of the law enforcement officers were also very strong. They specialized in dealing with these criminals. Ordinary criminals were easy to handle, but some criminals were different. Lu Hong sat in his office. He had ordered takeout and was working overtime. Recently, some cases had been giving him a lot of headaches. The criminal suspects were too cunning, knew how to counter surveillance, and he had no clue whatsoever. Lu Hong stared at a green pea in the meal box, and for some reason, he was reminded of that young man again. If he helped, the problem should be easily solved, right? Xiang Beifei hadn't come to him for training in over 10 days. Now, he didn't know how Xiang Beifei's training on Rapid Flame was progressing. Lu Hong really wanted to call and ask, but every time he picked up the phone, he resisted. He knew Xiang Beifei was still a high school student, with college entrance exams approaching, and needed to revise, so it wasn't appropriate to call and disturb him. But if he didn't ask, he was constantly worried about Xiang Beifei's improvements on Rapid Flame. This matter was extremely important to him. It was the first time Lu Hong felt so conflicted. He really wished Xiang Beifei would come by. He wanted Xiang Beifei's help with the case and also wanted to inquire about Rapid Flame. Just 5 days ago, he was handling a fight near the school, and he took the opportunity to look for Xiang Beifei and asked him briefly. However, at that time, Xiang Beifei explained that he had been very busy lately and hadn't made much progress in training Rapid Flame but would come to seek advice in a couple of days. But that couple of days turned into 5, and Xiang Beifei still hadn't come. It left him unable to concentrate on his tea or his meals. Lu Hong held his chopsticks, unable to eat, only fiddling with the green peas in the meal box, listlessly counting. He will come today, he won't come today. He will come today, he won't come today. Dad, what are you muttering to yourself? Lu Jiwei peered in, looking puzzled at her dad. Lu Hong's face turned red, and he quickly coughed and said, "Nothing. I'm thinking about a case. You're here. Why do you seem odd?" Lu Jiwei threw her school bag aside, went to pour a glass of water, and while drinking, she skeptically scrutinized her dad. "I'm eating. Just finished handling a case." Lu Hong picked up a pea, threw it into his mouth, chewed twice, and then, while his daughter was not looking, he quickly used his chopsticks to finish counting the rest of the peas. "He won't come today." Sigh. Lu Hong discarded his chopsticks, looking quite depressed. After a long pause, he asked, "Xiao Wei, how many days until Beifei's college entrance exam?" 19 days and 12 hours. Lu Jiwei said without hesitation. Lu Hong looked puzzled at his daughter. "You remember so clearly?" "He hasn't been here in many days. He promised to teach me reasoning skills." Lu Jiwei huffed. "Then don't disturb him. Beifei needs to prepare for the college entrance exams. He must be studying hard these few days, you know?"
Lu Hong instructed.
"I haven't disturbed him for 4 days already. He clearly told me he'd come in a couple of days." Lu Jiwei muttered, depressed. "All right, don't mind it too much. Help me clean up the meal box. I still need to go interrogate some criminals." Lu Hong had no appetite and got up to leave. He said he'd come in a couple of days. It's been 4 days already, not keeping his word. Lu Jiwei walked over to the meal box, about to clean it up, but then she noticed the green peas her dad had left. Thinking of Xiang Beifei, she sighed wistfully, then picked up the chopsticks and started fiddling with the green peas, muttering, "He will come today. He won't come today. He will come today. He won't come today." Xiang Beifei's realm had reached the mid-stage of qi controlling, and his spiritual power was sufficient to support him in continuing to practice and improve Rapid Flame. He hadn't gone to the law enforcement team these days because he needed to elevate his realm. The spiritual power of the early stage of qi controlling was too weak to help him improve Rapid Flame. But after stepping into the mid-stage of qi controlling, his control over spiritual power became more proficient, and he was able to try different methods for Rapid Flame. By using Learn by Analogy, he could identify the shortcomings of Rapid Flame and perfect this ability. However, with the college entrance exam approaching, Xiang Beifei had temporarily suspended his cultivation and was mainly focusing on his studies. Both cultivation and study required his serious attention. As it concerned Xiang Beifei's future, Xiang Qingde was even more nervous than Xiang Beifei these days. He had specially prepared a variety of recipes, cooking different meals for Xiang Beifei every day to supplement his nutrition. Xiang Beifei did not eat much, but Xiaohe was fed until he was round and plump. "Grandpa, there's no need to go to such expense. Simple meals are fine," Xiang Beifei said. "That won't do. We save when we need to save, and spend when we should spend." Xiang Qingde brought over a rib soup, and today's menu included rib soup, steamed carp, with potatoes and green vegetables for a balanced diet. In the past, they always had plain meals, but Xiang Qingde worried that a sudden switch to rich meals could cause more harm than good. Therefore, he had gradually been improving their diet ever since Xiang Beifei's awakening system activated, which had been going on for more than a month. This was partly to ensure that Xiang Beifei could have a strong body to complete system tasks and partly to ensure that when Xiang Beifei was studying, his nutrition could keep up. "The college entrance exam is tomorrow. Just do your best and don't be too nervous. By the way, do you want me to come along to support you?" Xiang Qingde asked. After he spoke, he hurriedly added, "If my coming makes you feel pressured, then I won't go. I'll wait for you at home." After all, the college entrance exam is a significant hurdle in life, and in this world, many parents would take leave to accompany their children at the testing site. Accompanying someone to an exam is useless. It's purely for peace of mind. Xiang Beifei thought for a moment and said, "Grandpa, if you come, I'll have more confidence." He knew his grandfather too well. Even if he said there was no need to come, his grandfather would certainly not be able to sit still at home. He would secretly go to the exam venue and anxiously await there. Only after seeing Xiang Beifei leave the examination hall would he rush back home and pretend he didn't go, so as not to pressure Xiang Beifei. Instead of refusing, it was better to proactively suggest that his grandfather accompany him, saying that it would give him confidence, and also make the old man feel more at ease. "Ah, all right, then I must go," said Xiang Qingde. Upon hearing what Xiang Beifei said, Xiang Qingde immediately became happy, the wrinkles on his face smoothing out. He had felt guilty for not being present when his grandson activated the awakening system. So this time he was determined to accompany his grandson for the college entrance exam no matter what. "I'll help you pack your bag and check the tools and documents needed for tomorrow's exam. You eat?" Xiang Qingde said as he got up and went to Xiang Beifei's room, and Xiang Beifei did not stop him. Xiang Qingde took his grandson's college entrance exam very seriously. He counted the pens, prepared 5 of them, tested each to make sure they all worked, and then placed the exam ticket into the same pen case. But at that moment, he suddenly noticed an introduction to defense of Zhuzhou mock exam paper in the corner of the desk. Curious about Xiang Beifei's performance and having never asked, he took it out and glanced at it. 43 points. Xiang Qingde saw the score and was shocked. Only 43 points? The college entrance exam consisted of 4 subjects: Chinese, Mathematics, System Integrated, Introduction to Defense of Zhuzhou. System Integrated was the most critical subject because it incorporated many branches. It analyzed and summarized the system types that each individual awakened from different perspectives, including physics, chemistry, geography, and desolate beast studies. It also introduced methods to identify and counter various systems, as well as how to complete system tasks more cleverly. The full score for System Integrated was 300 points. Yet Xiang Beifei had only scored 43 points? Xiang Qingde's face turned pale in an instant. "It's over. It's all over." Xiaofei's grades were so poor. To earn a living, Xiang Qingde left the house before dawn every day and often didn't come back until 7 or 8 p.m. Whenever he asked how school was going, Xiang Beifei always said it was fine. But Xiang Qingde had never understood what this fair really meant. He only knew that his grandson was generally reliable and wouldn't be too far off the mark. It wasn't until today that he found out fair meant 43 points. He flipped through the other exam papers, and each one's score was too dismal to look at. 89 points, 55 points. He even found a mock exam with a 0. He couldn't find a single paper that scored over 100 points. Xiang Qingde panicked for a moment. Xiaofei originally awakened only an N-level system, and now his grades are this bad. Xiang Qingde started to get anxious. He felt he had failed miserably as a grandfather. He didn't dare to hope that his grandson would get into elite universities like Liangzhou University or Qingzhou University. He just hoped for a spot in the most common university. Even the lowest-ranked college would do. But with these grades, how could he possibly get into any college? Xiang Qingde was so worried that he couldn't sleep well all night. The 43-point paper haunted him, and he got up early the next day to make breakfast, feeling almost in despair. However, fearing the effect on Xiang Beifei's college entrance exam today, he didn't dare to ask directly. Outside the examination venue, the crowd was huge. Many parents were taking this exam very seriously. Xiang Beifei took his grandfather to a shady spot outside the school to avoid the sun. Xiang Qingde was out of sorts, his mind preoccupied with the 43-point paper. With that score going into the exam, he was practically just making up the numbers. Xiang Beifei didn't know that his grandfather had accidentally discovered the first exam paper he had taken upon arriving in this world. Thinking his granddad was just as concerned about the college entrance exam as all the other parents, he said, "Grandpa, keep a level head, and remember to not panic during the exam. Drink more water, as today's weather is a bit hot, and don't let the sun get to you. Grandpa doesn't need to worry too much. Stay in a good mood, and stay spirited." Xiang Beifei was comforting his grandfather. Seeing him so nervous that his shoelaces were untied, he squatted down to tie them. He wasn't flustered at all. But his grandpa was more flustered than him, looking around anxiously with sweat pouring down his back. The other parents looked at the grandfather and grandson with curiosity. Isn't it odd what the child is saying? Who is the one actually taking the college entrance exam? Why is it the child comforting the parent to not get flustered? All around, every examinee was on edge, and parents were desperately cheering their kids on. reminding them of things to pay attention to for the exam, helping to organize stationery, clothing, and all sorts of things. But at Xiang Beifei's, it was the other way around. He was instructing his elderly granddad. There was something off about this grandfather and grandson. I'm not flustered. I'm not flustered. I'm very calm. Xiang Qingde wiped his sweat, took a few deep breaths trying to purge the image of that paper from his mind but failed. His palms were sweating nervously as he continually fiddled with his clothes. Xiang Beifei asked doubtfully, "Grandpa, were you this flustered when my dad took his college entrance exam?" Xiang Qingde, still occupied with the thought of the 43 points, absent-mindedly replied, "Oh, he was recommended." Xiang Beifei. That hit home. Xiang Beifei had forgotten about it. His old man's system talent was incredibly strong. As an SR Awakener, whether he took the college entrance exam or not didn't matter. All the universities vied for him. Xiang Qingde never needed to worry about his son's affairs. But his grandson was different. Sorry, I shouldn't have talked about this with you," Xiang Qingde hurriedly said. "It's okay. I can handle it. It's my fault for speaking too much," Xiang Beifei said calmly. "Ah, there you are." Lu Jiwei suddenly stopped in front of Xiang Beifei, riding a cool motorbike with a whoosh. She wore a helmet and was dressed in a city guardian uniform, with a boy sitting behind her on the motorbike. "Good day, Grandpa Xiang." Lu Jiwei greeted Xiang Qingde cheerfully. "How come you're here?" Xiang Beifei asked, puzzled. "The exam site needs city guardians to maintain order. I just happened to be off classes today, so I came over. I also have to run errands for those dumbass who forgot their admission tickets." As Lu Jiwei spoke, she turned her head and said to the boy behind her, "No offense meant." "Thank you, big sister." The boy hurriedly got off the motorbike. "Big sister, my foot. I'm only a year older than you. How much bigger could I be?" Lu Jiwei huffily took off her helmet, flipped her hair, and then glared at the boy. The boy's face turned red, and he quickly ran away. Every year there are candidates like this, forgetting their admission tickets, then seeking help from us guardians. We guardians have to dash through red lights and deliver them within 10 minutes. Otherwise it looks bad in the news. Then the parents hold our hands, crying with gratitude, and we have to gesture dismissively, saying on camera with a smile that it's our duty. The same news every year during the college entrance exams. Lu Jiwei spread her hands, tossed her helmet, and looked around, then said, "Eh? Why aren't there any parents thanking me? Where are the reporters? Don't I deserve their gratitude? I'll thank you on their behalf then. Our city needs people like you," said Xiang Qingde, giving her a thumbs up from the side. "Thank you, Grandpa Xiang," Lu Jiwei said happily, and then turned to Xiang Beifei. "Did you bring your admission ticket? Do you need me to play the hero and save the damsel in distress?" "I brought it." "Oh, what a pity." "Xiang Beifei, how badly do you wish I had forgotten my admission ticket?" "Okay. Good luck. Hurry to the exam room," Lu Jiwei said with a cheerful smile. Xiang Beifei waved and walked towards the exam room. All the exam rooms had very powerful shielding measures. They were interference fields created by SR rank awakeners, blocking all the examinees' system abilities. Higher-ranked systems could suppress lower-ranked ones. Since SRs are guaranteed admission and don't participate in the college entrance exam, the highest system level at each exam site was only S rank. With SR suppression, these newly awakened examinees could not rely on their own systems to cheat and would obediently follow the rules. Beyond system suppression, the proctors in each exam room also kept a watchful eye on them. The proctor in the exam room where Xiang Beifei was had an S-rank acute observation system, capable of capturing any subtle movements. Xiang Beifei wasn't concerned about these measures. He knew he had mastered the material well and needed to score high. Outside the exam room, Xiang Qingde pulled Lu Jiwei aside and quietly asked, "Xiao Wei, can I ask you something? What was Xiaofei studying with you guys a while back?" Lu Jiwei replied, "He was learning combat skills with my dad, but he hasn't come by for a long time, that guy." She huffed in dissatisfaction. "Xiao Wei, You're an outstanding student from Liangzhou University. Did you tutor him recently? Xiang Qingde was still concerned about that paper. Tutor homework? Lu Jiwei scratched her forehead awkwardly. These days, she had been wanting Xiang Beifei to teach her reasoning skills. In the past few days, she had reasoned through many cases, and the more she reasoned, the more confused she became. Her case-solving accuracy rate had already dropped to 10%. No, muttered Lu Jiwei. Then do you know if his recent grades have improved? Xiang Qingde asked anxiously. Lu Jiwei frowned and shook her head. I don't know about that. He was always careless, but last time he showed me his strong reasoning talent, I forgot to ask about his grades. Xiang Qingde was very worried and said, This morning, when I was packing his school bag, I inadvertently saw his comprehensive subject mock exam paper from 2 months ago. He only scored 43 points, and I remember this subject is out of 300 points. Lu Jiwei was stunned and said, Ah? Did he score that poorly? Yes, I'm getting more and more uneasy. If the boy doesn't even get into an ordinary college, what will we do? Xiang Qingde wiped the sweat from his forehead and looked anxious. Damn it! I forgot to use this to threaten him. The first thing that came to Lu Jiwei's mind was to use tutoring as a bargaining chip to exchange learning reasoning skills with Xiang Beifei. But she still comforted him, saying, Don't worry, Grandpa Xiang. It's all right. He has a talent for solving cases, and even if he doesn't get into university, he can still go guard the doors at the law enforcement team. Lu Jiwei felt relieved just thinking about Xiang Beifei being sent to guard doors, as payback for him standing her up all these days. But Xiang Qingde wasn't going to be reassured. Of course, he hoped his grandson could achieve higher success and not live at the bottom like he did. Sigh. I just hope Xiaofei can perform exceptionally well and at least score 400 points. Xiang Qingde fretted. Grandpa Xiang, it's useless to think too much now. If he doesn't get into university, let him retake the year. I'll tutor him next year. Lu Jiwei schemed to herself. If Xiang Beifei screwed up his exams in the next few days, she could take the chance to come into play. First, she'd exaggerate Grandpa Xiang's worries, making Xiang Beifei feel guilty to the point of being unable to face his grandfather. Then, she would propose the deal. I'll tutor your subjects, you teach me reasoning. Then we'll see if you still stand me up. What a perfect plan. She stood with hands on hips. The college entrance exam lasted 2 days, covering 4 subjects. Chinese and mathematics were the basics. The comprehensive subject was key. Studying it well could lead to a better understanding of the system world. Introduction to Defense of Jiuzhou mainly covered the primal topography of Jiuzhou and its developmental history, including knowledge about the wilderness and other topics. Xiang Qingde worried about Xiang Beifei for 2 days, and Lu Jiwei was busy with her own little schemes as well. Xiang Beifei had no idea what these two were thinking. After each exam, he felt their gazes were odd, especially Lu Jiwei with her "I've got you eating out of my hand" look. He didn't know what was on her mind. He didn't pay attention to them and just took the exams seriously. After the last exam in the comprehensive subject ended, students rushed out of the exam room, some joyful, some upset. He blended into the noisy crowd and casually walked out of the school gate. Next, it's time to start earning tuition fees. Xiang Beifei stretched lazily. Next, it's time to prepare to knock him down a peg. Lu Jiwei rubbed her hands together gleefully. Next, it's time to look into retaking the year. Xiang Qingde sighed with concern. The end of the National University entrance exam meant that Xiang Beifei no longer had to go to school, which was a liberation for him. In high school, he only had to learn cultural lessons, which were not difficult, and he had mastered them, yet he still had to go to school every day, truly a waste of time. His mastery of rapid flame had made significant progress, and when he threw a punch, it was no longer limited to sparks, but he could actually produce flames. Although the power of the flames was far from as strong as those displayed by Lu Hong, Xiang Beifei was able to create a violent gust out of the flames with special finesse, making it both offensive and defensive. On the same level, he would definitely not be at a disadvantage. Combined with the abilities Abruptly Stop and Breath Soil, he would not be outmatched even against those in the later stages of Qi controlling. Lu Jiwei called and wanted to come to see him, But he dismissed her, telling her there was plenty of time during the summer vacation and they could talk after the results were out. For some reason, Lu Jiwei unprecedentedly agreed and didn't bother him. Xiang Beifei felt that her tone over the phone was a bit strange, as if she was somewhat pleased with herself, though he had no idea what she was pleased about. But Xiang Beifei didn't take it to heart. In this world with system abilities to assist, marking the National University entrance exam was very quick, and results could be released in about 3 days. So he cultivated diligently at home for 3 days. However, during these 3 days, Xiang Qingde was extremely worried. Because Xiang Beifei had locked himself in his room, he only came out to eat all day long. This child, he must be upset about not doing well on the exam and has locked himself in his room. I really am not a competent grandfather. Xiang Qingde was very self-critical. He had never paid attention to Xiang Beifei's grades in the past and only realized before the exam that Xiang Beifei's grades were as bad as a garbage truck's, with no hope for university. But every time Xiang Beifei came out to eat, he acted as if nothing had happened and could still chat and laugh with him, which made Xiang Qingde feel even worse. This child, he must be pretending to be like this so that I won't worry. He's too considerate. I'm so incompetent. Xiang Qingde blamed himself for 3 days. He wanted to comfort his grandson, but he feared that saying too much would make him feel worse. After much thought, he decided to wait until the results were released to talk. These few days, Xiang Beifei hadn't mentioned anything about the National University entrance exam, so he didn't bring it up either. But the results were coming out this afternoon. He couldn't pretend anymore. Xiang Qingde didn't go to sell vegetables today. He was worried that once the results were out, Xiang Beifei's mood might worsen, and it would be bad if he did something impulsive. No matter what, even if it was an anticipated bad outcome, he wanted to face it with his grandson and help him get through this difficult time. Then he'd need to find an opportunity to inquire about repeating a year. At mealtime, Xiang Beifei noticed that his grandfather seemed out of sorts and asked in surprise, "Grandpa, is something wrong?" Xiang Qingde, afraid of being too direct and hurting his grandson's feelings, carefully chose his words and asked tentatively, "Xiaofei, do you have any plans for the summer vacation?" After thinking, Xiang Beifei, who hadn't figured out the tuition of 100,000 for Liangzhou University, said, "I'll work to earn money." Xiang Qingde was shocked. What? Was this the decision his grandson made after locking himself in his room for 3 days? Did he acknowledge that there was no hope for university and wasn't even considering repeating the year, but instead planning to find a job and just get by? How could he quit school right after high school graduation? Xiang Qingde quickly said, "The results aren't out yet. No need to rush. By the way, Xiao Wei mentioned it to me the other day. Have you thought about private tutoring classes? You two are pretty familiar with each other. You could discuss private classes and make up lessons during the holidays." Private tutoring classes? Why suddenly bring this up? Xiang Beifei didn't quite understand why Lu Jiwei would discuss this matter with his grandfather. He was about to go to university, so the lessons certainly weren't for him, which meant they must be for her to catch up. That girl's deductive abilities indeed needed some work. Xiang Qingde said, "Xiaofei, Lu Yatu is a talented student at the Martial Arts College of Liangzhou University. I asked around. Last year she scored 621 points without any bonus to enter the martial arts college. Her academic performance is quite good." Xiang Qingde planned to hint indirectly, to let Xiang Beifei understand that Lu Yatu was capable of tutoring his coursework. 621 points? Xiang Beifei was somewhat surprised by the results. "I didn't see that the girl scored so high on the college entrance exam." Xiang Beifei always felt that this girl was carefree, ready to throw a punch at any moment, but he hadn't expected her academic scores to be so impressive. The admission score for S-level candidates at Martial Arts College of Liangzhou University is 550 points, with an additional 50 points for S-level, so the minimum requirement for S-level awakeners is just 500 points. But she scored 621 points, which is 671 points with the extra credit. Then why is her reasoning ability so terrible? She has good scores, then what? Xiang Beifei asked. Xiang Qingde continued to persuade, Xiao Wei usually does part-time jobs to save money. Last summer, after the college entrance exam, she started a private tutoring class, helping 4 kids from relatives and friends' families with their studies, and their grades improved significantly. She told me that she's planning to start another tutoring class this year. Xiang Beifei pondered. She's going to start a tutoring class? Is she planning to expand or what? That means she needs teachers, right? Does this girl think I'm good at reasoning, quick-witted, and realizing that my academic performance must be good? So she wants to rope me in to help those high school juniors improve their scores, while also making some extra money on the side. But that can't be right. Doesn't Lu Jiwei like to catch criminals? Or maybe she's planning to set up a reasoning skills improvement class at the law enforcement squad, and she wants me to be the teacher? And when I agree, I'll find a bunch of law enforcement officers sitting in the class. It's like putting up a sheep's head and selling dog meat. Haha, she's quite scheming. Xiang Beifei said, Grandpa, I'm not interested in tutoring classes. You're not interested in tutoring classes? Xiang Qingde became anxious. Is Xiaofei determined not to retake the exam? No way. No way. He had finally negotiated with Lu Jiwei, and she had agreed to help Xiaofei with his studies. He needed to persuade the child. Xiang Qingde said eagerly, Actually, Xiao Wei has good intentions. She's going to work at the law enforcement squad in the future, and I would feel more at ease if you work with her. Grandpa and she have discussed it, and she is quite understanding. Would you reconsider it? Xiang Beifei saw the anxious look on his grandpa's face and vaguely understood. Lu Jiwei probably said something to Grandpa, perhaps making some promises like ensuring his job security in the future. This girl knew he would probably refuse, but since he usually took care of Grandpa's feelings, she knew how to start from that angle. She's even deployed Grandpa to persuade him. What a sly move. Xiang Beifei indeed didn't want to refuse Grandpa directly. After thinking for a moment, he said, All right, I'll discuss it with her. If possible, the tutoring class won't be a big issue. Tutoring classes are quite profitable nowadays. There are a bunch of tutoring organizations out there, and the Teachers Awakening systems are amazing, like the R-Level Home Tutoring System, that helps others improve their grades while earning system points, and the R-Level Love Studying System, which makes a child love learning and allows you to earn a substantial amount of system income. The industry is booming. Tutoring Lu Jiwei and making some money wouldn't be too bad. All right, you discuss it with Xiao Wei, and I'll help you solve the other issues, Xiang Qingde said, his heart finally easing as he heard Xiang Beifei agree to let Lu Jiwei tutor him. It seems Xiaofei is thinking about retaking the exam. At least he managed to keep Xiaofei from thinking about getting a job and earning money for now. As long as Lu Yatu can persuade Xiaofei to retake the year, with her tutoring, Xiaofei should be able to improve his grades next year and not just score 43 points. Now he just had to wait for the results in the afternoon before bringing up the issue of retaking the exam. Where can I check the results? Xiang Qingde asked, pretending to be casual. At the school, Xiang Beifei replied. In the world of the system, results are not private. Everyone has a system, and the ranking of results is sometimes related to many people's system tasks, so schools publish everyone's ranking. Part of the reason is to consider the teachers. After all, their teaching is largely dependent on their students' results to gain system points, admission rates, the number of high-scoring students. These all determine many teachers' system tasks. Another part is to consider the students, such as who has surpassed whom in results to complete a system task. Many learning-related systems issue such tasks. Due to level suppression within the system, if the results are not made public, there are many restrictions like N-level and R-level systems unable to judge if they have exceeded an S-level host's results, making it impossible to confirm task completion. Therefore, to accommodate the awakeners with N-level and R-level systems, it's necessary to publish the rankings for confirmation. Then this afternoon, shall I accompany you to the school? Xiang Qingde asked. Okay. Xiang Beifei had no objections. After eating, they headed to the school. In the middle of the day, the school was still filled with anxious parents and students, many of whom had come early to wait for the results to be announced. There was an honor roll at the school gate, with results directly transmitted from the Alliance Education Bureau to the honor rolls at each school. The ranking within the school, within each respective Liangzhou, as well as the overall Juzhou ranking, were all clearly displayed on the honor roll. The results had not yet been released, and the grandfather-grandson pair waited under the shade of a tree. As for his own results, Xiang Beifei had a good idea, but it was different for Xiang Qingde. As a grandparent, he was restless, worried about poor results affecting Xiang Beifei, and he was already thinking about how to comfort his grandson. Xiaofei, no matter how well or poorly you did, Grandpa will always be with you, so don't be nervous, Xiang Qingde reassured him. Nervous? Xiang Beifei smiled wryly to himself. Just like on the day of the college entrance exams, the nervous one was not him. I understand, Xiang Beifei said. Xiang Qingde looked around among the crowd and noticed both the teachers and the school leaders waiting. He immediately spotted Principal Li Nanqing. Decades ago, when his own son awakened to an SR-level talent, causing a sensation throughout the school, he had met Principal Li Nanqing once and recognized him. Thinking about how he, as a grandparent busy making a living, had never interacted with his grandson's teachers, he felt a wave of guilt. He wondered if the principal still remembered him. Never mind that Xiaofei's grades are so poor, and he just agreed to attend tutoring classes. Even if the principal doesn't remember me, I must still go and entreat them, he resolved. Xiang Qingde was willing to set aside any concerns about Face for the sake of his grandson's future. This matter could not be delayed. Currently, everyone was waiting for the results and no parent was approaching the principal about retaking a year. Once the results came out, whether it was the teachers or the principal, they would likely be too busy, and finding a spot in repeat classes would become much harder. He stood up, wiped off his sweat, and said to Xiang Beifei, Xiaofei, Grandpa needs to step away for a moment. Wait here for me. Xiang Beifei nodded. He did not know what his grandfather was actually up to. Taking advantage of the lull, he continued practicing his control of abruptly stop under the tree. But at this moment, Lu Jiwei appeared out of nowhere. I've kept my promise and didn't bother you these past few days, but I'm here for the results announcement, she declared. Lu Jiwei walked towards him with her hands behind her back, looking quite smug. Don't you have classes to attend? Xiang Beifei asked, seeing the ever-surprising Lu Jiwei. University life is more relaxed. We don't have classes every day. Jealous, aren't you? Lu Jiwei teased. That day, after learning about Xiang Beifei's poor academic performance from Grandpa Xiang, with only 43 points in comprehensive subjects, she was overjoyed. I scored a whopping 621 points last year and got into Liangzhou University without any extra help, making me a top student. It's clear that Xiang Beifei is a poor student, so now I have the confidence to discuss studying and reasoning with him. In order to deal with this tutoring class, she forced herself to refrain from looking for Xiang Beifei for another 3 days. Are you in a bad mood right now? Lu Jiwei inquired. Xiang Beifei replied, I'm okay. Forcing a smile, pretending to be fat when slapped in the face. Let's see how long you can keep this act up. Lu Jiwei triumphantly said, All right, Grandpa Xiang told me everything. I never expected this, never expected that even you have a weakness, huh? Weakness? Knowing that I usually wouldn't refuse Grandpa's requests, so you're using Grandpa to pressure me? Xiang Beifei couldn't be bothered to say much more. Did Grandpa Xiang tell you everything? Lu Jiwei sat down beside Xiang Beifei, making herself at home and feeling very pleased. What if he did? Xiang Beifei asked. Okay, let's cut to the chase. Grandpa Xiang cares about you, otherwise, why would he come to me to discuss this? The old man values nothing more than his grandson's future, right? Lu Jiwei said. What are you trying to say? Xiang Beifei asked. I know you are a filial child who definitely doesn't want to disappoint your grandfather. How are you considering the private tutoring class issue? Lu Jiwei said with a grin. Xiang Beifei thought it over. Now truly, running a tutoring class could be quite profitable, but he didn't know how to set a fair tuition fee. How much should he charge per student? Being so poor he could hear the wind whistling through his pockets. He wouldn't do anything that didn't bring in money. He asked, Since you've put it this way, what do you think would be an appropriate price for the tuition? Ha! It looks like he agrees to let me tutor him, even asking me how much to charge for one lesson. Lu Jiwei, who grew up with a golden key in her mouth, didn't lack money. She could completely afford to tutor Xiang Beifei for free as long as he agreed. However, after thinking for a bit, she tentatively said, 100 per hour? She knew Xiang Beifei's family wasn't well off, so it wasn't really necessary to charge him, but she still had to go through the motions. At least it would make Xiang Beifei value the lessons if they pinched his wallet a bit, and he'd be serious about studying. As for the tuition fees, she could just take the money from Xiang Beifei and then quietly give it back to Grandpa Xiang. After tutoring him a few times, she would have the justification to ask him to teach her reasoning skills. At that time, with Xiang Beifei owing her a favor, he wouldn't be able to refuse. Perfect plan. 100 per hour? Xiang Beifei pondered. So stingy. Nowadays, standard rates at tutoring institutions are 300 to 400 per hour. To tutor her for 1 hour and only charge 100? Forget it, for the sake of Uncle Lu, I'll accept 100 as a token amount, a friendship price. But with such a fee, when would it be possible to gather the 100,000 tuition fee? Should I find a chance to raise the price next time? Definitely, otherwise, it's a huge loss. As the principal of Luhe High School, Principal Li was naturally expected to observe the moment when the high school examination results were announced. If the students from his own school scored well, his prestige value would also increase, which was very important to him. Principal Li was talking with others. Today, not only school teachers but also various parents had come, some of whom were well known in society. He had to be polite in chatting with them. Xiang Qingde was somewhat anxious, as there were many people talking to Principal Li, most of whom were social elites. He couldn't make his way through. Those who could speak with the principal were elites from various industries, both in status and realm far surpassing Xiang Qingde. No one noticed him, a plainly dressed old man. However, Principal Li did notice Xiang Qingde. He found the man somewhat familiar and soon remembered. He was Xiang Tianqing's father, Xiang Beifei's grandfather. Thinking of Xiang Beifei, Principal Li pondered for a moment, then took the initiative to walk over to him, making way through the crowd. Don't crowd. There's an old gentleman behind. Don't bump into him. Principal Li. Xiang Qingde finally sighed in relief and squeezed his way to Principal Li's side. I recognize you. You are Xiang Beifei's grandfather? Principal Li said with a smile. Yes, yes, Xiang Qingde hurriedly replied. Principal Li, I have something to discuss with you. Thinking of Xiang Beifei, Principal Li said, All right, come with me. He greeted the other parents before moving to a quiet spot with Xiang Qingde. Mr. Xiang, long time no see, Principal Li said with a smile. Xiang Qingde wiped his sweat, saying helplessly, I didn't expect Principal Li to still remember me. Of course, your son is a genius, one of the few SRs in our school. How could I forget him? Principal Li exclaimed. An SR student who had become successful brought him many system values. Hearing Principal Li mention his son, Xiang Qingde's expression dimmed slightly. Realizing this, Principal Li said apologetically, My condolences. Xiang Qingde gave a bitter smile and said, It's all right. I came to see you today for my grandson. Xiang Beifei, right? I haven't asked him yet. How did he perform this time? Principal Li inquired. Xiang Qingde sighed. After the college entrance examination, he locked himself in his room for 3 days, didn't go out to interact with classmates. I have a rough idea of how he performed. Principal Li immediately understood. The kid must have flunked the exam. And not just slightly. How desperate must the kid have been to lock himself in his room for 3 days? Principal Li could almost feel Xiang Beifei's overwhelming distress in the room. Being an N-level awakener with usually poor academic performance, and his first system task being to get into Liangzhou University, was akin to climbing to heaven. Any person would likely be devastated by such a blow. He wondered why fate had to play such a cruel joke on this kid. Principal Li couldn't help but sigh. You really need to give him good guidance. Young people are impulsive, and if the pressure becomes too much, it'd be terrible if he does something drastic. Principal Li said earnestly. Xiang Qingde also expressed his concerns, saying, yes, but he tends to keep things to himself. At every meal, to avoid worrying me, he pretends as if everything is normal, and it truly distresses me to see him like that. He would prefer Xiang Beifei to cry his heart out in front of him. Let the tears flow out with all his might. At least that way he could vent his emotions. But Xiang Beifei is too sensible. He just doesn't want to worry me, preferring to cry alone in his room, swallowing his tears. Sometimes, being sensible can be heartbreaking. Xiang Qingde's guilt deepened a bit more. The results aren't out yet, so you don't need to be anxious. Learning isn't achieved overnight. First, let's see if he has improved this time, how far he is from the average university admission score, and then help him strengthen where he's weak. I talked to him a while ago. He wasn't in a good state. His chances of getting into a university this year are indeed slim, but as long as he's willing to try hard, there's still a chance next year. Comforted Li Nanqing. Xiang Qingde responded, Right, that makes sense. However, I've already found him a tutor and am planning to have him retake the year. That's why I came to see you, Principal Li. Could you please help look after him in the repeat class? Li Nanqing nodded. The matter of repeating a year isn't a big issue. However, I suggest that you talk to his homeroom teacher, Professor Yang. Professor Yang leads a repeat class, and since Xiang Beifei is his student, it would be better to consult him. Li Nanqing looked around in the crowd and pointed out to Xiang Qingde which one was Yang Hua. Thank you, Principal Li. I will go and ask him now. After expressing his gratitude, Xiang Qingde quickly went to find Yang Hua. Li Nanqing watched Xiang Qingde's receding figure and sighed softly. It's quite normal for this kid to not get into university this year, but I hope he can get back on his feet. Yang Hua had been anxiously waiting for the results to come out, as they would determine whether his teaching prestige value could surge once more. The class leader, Zhuo Jing, stood by his side, looking smug. Teacher, don't worry. With my capability, getting into one of the top 9 elite universities is easy, boasted Zhuo Jing, puffing out his chest. Yang Hua smiled and said, Of course I believe you. You're so outstanding that as long as you perform normally, getting into Liangzhou University is no big deal. His greatest hope at the moment was pinned on Zhuo Jing, an S-class awakener. Just then, Xiang Qingde approached and hastily said, Professor Yang, I'm Xiang Beifei's grandfather, and I'd like to discuss something with you. Xiang Beifei? The one at the bottom of the class? Yang Hua appeared slightly displeased and frowned, asking, What is it? Xiang Qingde earnestly said, Well, Xiang Beifei didn't perform very well this time. Although the results aren't out yet, I know he might need to repeat the year. I heard you usually lead a repeat class, and I was wondering, since you're Xiang Beifei's teacher, if he wants to repeat the year. As soon as Yang Hua heard that Xiang Qingde was here to discuss Xiang Beifei's retaking the year, his expression darkened, saying, Mr. Xiang, although I do teach a repeat class every year, I'll be frank with you. A student like Xiang Beifei cannot keep up with the pace of my class, and I won't accept him. Xiang Qingde was startled and quickly said, Professor Yang, I haven't managed him well before and I apologize for the trouble it caused, but he will realize his mistakes. I'm planning to hire a home tutor to help him catch up, and he has agreed. Could you give him another chance, please? Xiang Qingde, desperate to find a place for his grandson to retake the year, could only bow slightly, his attitude very humble. Lu Jiwei had already agreed to tutor Xiang Beifei, and this time he must ensure Xiang Beifei studies hard to strive for admission to an average university next year. As a grandfather, he must find a repeat class for his grandson, even if it means having to beg humbly to secure a spot. However, Yang Hua snorted coldly, his attitude very indifferent. Truthfully, Xiang Beifei usually followed the rules in class. Except for the time he had taken leave for a mock exam, he was quite normal at other times. But the problem was that Xiang Beifei's grades were really bad. Yang Hua normally taught 2 classes, a repeat class and a graduating class, which were separate because the repeat class students had awakened systems and needed to do system tasks besides studying. Yang Hua's repeat class only enrolled students with potential, such as those who wanted to get into a good university but were just a few points short and had an R-level system status. If such students repeated a year and then entered a good university, they could definitely bring him a huge wave of teachers' prestige value. But what use was there in repeating the year for a student like Xiang Beifei? What could he bring to him? Other than being an eyesore and earning a few insignificant points of teachers' prestige value by nagging 2 or 3 sentences a day, what good was it? Those system values combined were nothing compared to what one student from his repeat class could bring by getting into a university. Yang Hua coldly raised his head, looking sidelong at Xiang Qingde, and said, "Mr. Xiang, as the class teacher, I can kindly remind you that Xiang Beifei is not cut out for studying. Hiring a tutor for him is just wasting money. To put it harshly, his system talents are poor, his academic performance is poor, and his chances of getting into a university are almost zero. It would be best to find him a job early on." Xiang Qingde felt very uncomfortable with Yang Hua's words. His own grandson. How could he be that bad? The child was very sensible and nice to others, so what if his studies were a bit behind? Doesn't he deserve a chance to start over? Did he have to be so harsh? Xiang Qingde clenched his fists, feeling very uncomfortable. Just now, when he went to see Principal Li Nanxing, the principal had a very good attitude. How come it turned to such an evaluation when it came to Yang Hua? But he still pleaded, "Professor Yang, actually my grandson Xiang Beifei is a very aspiring child. Please give him a chance." Yang Hua said impatiently, "My class isn't for just anyone." He pulled over the S-class awakener Zhuojing, who was next to him, and pointed at Zhuojing, saying, "This is S-class awakener Zhuojing. You ask him, what kind of students does my repeat class usually recruit?" Zhuojing stood proudly and looked at Xiang Qingde, sneering disdainfully. "Professor Yang's students are bound for greatness, but a student like Xiang Beifei only tarnishes our teacher's reputation. Honestly, Professor Yang is embarrassed to tell others that he is Xiang Beifei's teacher. As Xiang Beifei's guardian, you know better than anyone else the weight of your own child. Why bother embarrassing yourself?" Xiang Qingde's face turned a mixture of blue, red, and white. "Oh, is that so?" Xiang Beifei's voice sounded from behind them. "Xiaofei." Xiang Qingde turned around and saw his grandson, then glanced at S-class Zhuojing and Yang Hua, worried they had said something that deeply hurt his grandson's self-esteem, and quickly grabbed Xiang Beifei's arm, saying, "Let's go over there." But Xiang Beifei didn't move, just frowned as he stared at Zhuojing. Kong Shouwen also stood beside him, having just passed by and seen the situation. He quickly went to get Xiang Beifei. Zhuojing also looked back at him defiantly. "Since you've heard it, I won't keep it any longer. Your grandfather wanted you to repeat the year in Professor Yang's class, but with your grades like that, Professor Yang wouldn't accept you. If you had any self-awareness, you would understand this," said Zhuojing. "Repeat the year?" Xiang Beifei looked puzzled at his grandfather. "Grandpa, the results aren't out yet. Why should I repeat the year?" Xiang Qingde sighed, feeling uneasy. "It's not. I just. He didn't know how to explain to Xiaofei without saying he didn't trust his grades, which would make Xiaofei feel even worse. Xiang Qingde stammered, thinking of a good excuse. Zhuojing spoke sarcastically. "Oh, you're still waiting for the results? What, do you expect your grades to soar? Everybody here knows what you can score." Shouwen angrily spoke. "Can you stop looking down on others, please?" Zhuojing didn't plan to clash with Kong Shouwen. After all, Shouwen was also an S-rank, his system level just as high, and there was a possibility that his scores could improve rapidly. He could only target N-rank Beifei instead. "I would like to respect him, but I don't even know if he's capable," Zhuojing said. Beifei nodded thoughtfully. Then, he looked at Zhuojing's S-rank appreciation system interface. Current task: harvest any 5,000 appreciations. Task progress: 3629/5000. Task reward: attack technique, piercing strike, can be leveled up. Optional side task: score 550 in the college entrance exam. Harvest 2,000 appreciations. Task reward: double appreciation card, can double current appreciation value, only usable during early qi controlling stage. Recommended exchange, gathering qi formula, intermediate. Beifei shrugged his shoulders. He then glanced at Yang Hua's system interface. Task objective. Reach 15,000 prestige value as a teacher to exchange for a qi and blood pill. Current progress. 13499/40,000. Note: qi and blood pill can temporarily enhance one's strength to combat someone surpassing one's own minor realm. Professor Yang, you haven't gotten that qi and blood pill yet? Beifei pondered. Maybe he would complete the task today. Beifei didn't retort, but Zhuo Jing's words had angered Lu Jiwei, who was beside him. How can you talk like that? How can you completely lack manners? So what if you're S rank? Does it give you the right to be so arrogant? Lu Jiwei also clenched her fist and glared fiercely at Zhuo Jing. She was an S-rank awakener as well, but had never looked down on anyone like this. Zhuo Jing shrank back slightly under her glare. Let's go, we'll ask the principal later. Xiang Qingde didn't want to cause trouble. His grandson still needed to repeat a year at the school, and he couldn't afford to make impulsive decisions that could result in retaliation later. All right. Beifei remained very calm. Just then, someone exclaimed, "The results are out." Whoosh! The crowd immediately boiled with excitement as everyone turned their attention to the honor board. This was determining the future of the college entrance examination candidates present. Whether it was parents, teachers, students, school leaders, or media journalists from various fields who had come to report, everyone was waiting for this year's college entrance examination results from Luhe High School. The results didn't come out all at once, but emerged according to the examination numbers one by one. Everyone's examination number was scrambled. Sometimes the next number belonged to a different school, thus causing a delay. The first person's results are out. Everyone looked towards the honor roll, and those who couldn't see it turned to the large screen temporarily set up by the school. Wu Qi, Level N, Chinese 110, Math 124, Comprehensive 209, Introduction to Defense of Jizhou 108, Total 551. For a Level N student, this score, even if not good enough for one of the 9 elite universities, was still good enough for a reputable standard university. Quite a commendable achievement. The student named Wu Qi was also very excited. Although he was at Level N, his score was not bad, and he could pick and choose from universities other than the 9 elite ones. Lu Ku, Level R, Chinese 90, Math 104, Comprehensive 201, Introduction to Defense of Jizhou 111, Total 506. Even as a Level R, his scores weren't better than the Level N Wu Qi's. Soon, a string of names popped up one after another, and everyone craned their necks eagerly, watching for their own results with hope. At this moment, Zhuo Jing's results also came out. Zhuo Jing, Level S, Chinese 112, Math 113, Comprehensive 241, Introduction to Defense of Jizhou 115, Total 581. Zhuo Jing was ecstatic. As a Level S awakener, adding 50 points to this score made it 631 points. Getting into any one of the 9 elite universities was now a sure thing. Great! I knew I wasn't wrong about you, Zhuo Jing. Yang Hua was even more excited than Zhuo Jing. Your student Shua's college entrance exam score is 631 points. Your teacher prestige value plus 631. Current teacher prestige value 14130/40,000. This was what Yang Hua wanted. Why did he value college entrance exam scores so much? Because his system was crystal clear about it during the annual release of exam results. For each student's score, that was how many teacher prestige points he would gain. This was much more substantial than scolding students on a normal day. There were 52 students in his class, and if every student averaged 500 points, that would add 26,000 points to his total. So he wished they would score as many points as possible. And then there were students like Xiang Beifei who scored a mere 200 or 300. It was simply intolerable. If they were to repeat the year, the system points for the next year would be halved. Scoring 200 meant adding only 100, and there were limited spots for repeat students, so he would rather reserve these spots for those who could score high, rather than for someone like Xiang Beifei. The class leader is too impressive. Oh my god! The class leader's raw score is 581. I've hit the jackpot. What an auspicious number. Jackpot. Hooray! Take off. Take off. Take off. Congratulations to our class leader. Countless praises chorused, ringing endlessly in his ears. Zhuo Jing was filled with pride. He looked at his system interface where the numbers were rapidly increasing. You have received praise from Yang Hua. Appreciation value +2. You have received praise from Lu Honghong. Appreciation value +2. You have received praise from Xiang Beifei. Appreciation value +2. You have received praise from Wu Qi. Appreciation value +2. Take off. Take off. Fly me beyond the highest heavens. Zhuo Jing was laughing heartily inside. Completing the system task was just too easy. With so many people around today, and his name and scores being publicly announced, everyone would surely recognize Zhuo Jing. He was bound to gain a few thousand appreciation points at the very least. This was why scores had to be publicly revealed. Many student systems likely required them to use their scores to complete tasks, and Zhuo Jing was undoubtedly one of them. At this moment, Zhuo Jing stood tall and proud, contentedly accepting everyone's praises. There were just too many people praising and envying him. The numbers on the system were jumping rapidly, which was dizzying to watch. He hadn't even noticed that among the rising numbers on his system was a familiar name. Xiang Beifei silently gave him a thumbs up. Now you know where the gap between us lies, right? Zhuo Jing glanced at Xiang Beifei with a very smug expression, then turned to Xiang Qingde and said, Students taught by teacher Yang Hua all need to be like me. You should weigh yourselves accordingly. Kong Xiuwen couldn't stand it, but was unable to refute, grumbling, Damn, his score is so high. He then glanced at Xiang Beifei and asked quietly, How about it? Are you confident or not? Xiang Beifei just smiled and didn't say much. Meanwhile, Xiang Qingde was also extremely surprised to see Zhuo Jing's score. 581 points. This kid's academic performance is actually so high. In the system world, scoring above 550 points is quite an accomplishment because it's the minimum admission threshold for the 9 elite universities, let alone the fact that 581 points were the raw score, which amounted to 631 with bonuses. He couldn't help but take a glance at his grandson and sighed internally. The gap is too wide. Alas, I wonder if he will be affected. Xiaofei, let's not get discouraged. Xiang Qingde patted Xiang Beifei's shoulder and comforted him. Grandpa, my score hasn't come out yet, Xiang Beifei said. Then let's go over there and wait. Xiang Qingde was worried that waiting here, with Zhuo Jing's score setting such a stark comparison, might let his grandson feel wronged. So he quickly pulled Xiang Beifei to the side. Okay. Xiang Beifei didn't say much more. However, Lu Jiwei was unhappy, humming and grumbling. Aren't you going to say something? He did pretty well on the test, Xiang Beifei said. Lu Jiwei rolled her eyes. I'm not talking about that. It's his arrogant demeanor that's really annoying. After a pause, she put her hands on her hips and said, You need to reflect on yourself. Grandpa Xiang is getting on in years, and he still has to work hard for you. I can't stand to watch this. Xiang Beifei shrugged his shoulders. He'll work hard. Xiaowei, don't pressure him. Xiang Qingde quickly gave Lu Jiwei a look, signaling her to say less. I just can't stand it. He's always like this, appearing glum and never competing with others. It's too easy for him to be at a disadvantage. Lu Jiwei thought back to the previous encounter with Qin Yi at the law enforcement team, where Xiang Beifei hadn't bothered to compete with Qin Yi. Xiang Beifei could endure, but she could not. Yes, this is a student I taught. Zhuo Jing, our class rep, S-grade. Highly talented and very hard-working. He's my masterpiece. Yang Hua was speaking to all parents. His teacher's prestige value could also be obtained from the parents, and now he had to seize this opportunity to market his image as a teacher who had done well in coaching. He also glanced over at Xiang Qingda's direction, purposefully letting Xiang Qingda know that he only valued students with good grades. Sigh. Xiang Qingda sighed and sat on the edge of the flower bed. How could he not perceive the implied meaning in Yang Hua's words? Other parents were eagerly looking forward to their children's good performance. Yet he was afraid to see his own grandson's results. If the score was too bad and it struck his grandson down, what should he do? Xiang Qingda's mind buzzed with consoling words to prepare. In case the results were too dismal, he would have to face them with his grandson. At that moment, there was a sudden exclamation from the crowd. Is this Xiang Beifei's score? Xiang Qingda heard someone in the crowd calling his grandson's name, and his heart clenched tight. What was inevitable still had arrived. Xiang Qingda was extremely nervous. The scores of Xiang Beifei must be terribly bad, or else they wouldn't have provoked so much discussion among the people. He held on to Xiang Beifei's hand tightly. At this moment, what his grandson needed the most must be a pair of encouraging and comforting hands. He wanted to let Xiaofei know that, even if his grades were poor, he would still be by his side. Xiang Qingda lowered his head, not even daring to look at the scores displayed on the screen. However, the venue suddenly fell silent, everyone staring at the big screen in disbelief at the score displayed. Zhu Jing, who was originally smug and ready to mock Xiang Beifei, froze the moment he saw the score. Even Yang Hua stood rooted to the spot, frozen like ice, as his mouth hung open in shock. Xiang Beifei, Level N, Chinese 142, Mathematics 149, System Integrative 300, Introduction to Defense of Jizhou 141. Total score 732. 732. The most complicated, system integrative subject turned out to be a perfect score of 300. Everyone had looks of shock on their faces. They had almost never heard of anyone achieving a perfect score in system integrative. This is impossible, muttered Zhu Jing to himself. Just moments ago, he had been flaunting his score of 631 in front of Xiang Beifei, wanting to show the difference between an S-level genius like himself and someone at the N level. However, he now realized that his raw score was more than 100 points lower than Xiang Beifei's. Even with his S-level talent adding 50 points, he had only 631. That's 101 points less than Xiang Beifei, who had no added points, completely left in the dust. Not even close. Zhu Jing found it hard to accept this reality. His own score of 581 seemed to be mocking him. This Xiang Beifei, wasn't he preparing to repeat a year of school? How could he have this score? Waves of astonishment crashed within Yang Hua's heart. Just a few minutes earlier, before the scores were released, Xiang Qingda had talked to him about repeating a year, which he had impatiently rejected and even scorned. In his impression, Xiang Beifei would probably just score around 300, not even fit for a vocational college, let alone consider his repeat class. Yang Hua had righteously told Xiang Qingda that Xiang Beifei had no chance of success, and that it was better to find a job sooner rather than later. However, the reality had caught him completely off guard. Xiang Beifei actually scored 732 points. As the homeroom teacher for the graduating class, he knew too well what such a score meant. Did these scores call for repetition? Only a fool would repeat with such scores. Yang Hua was deeply shocked, his mind occupied with only one question. How exactly did he achieve such a score? Didn't Grandpa Xiang agree to let me tutor his coursework? How am I supposed to tutor with such scores? Lu Jiwei opened her mouth wide enough to fit a fist. Last year, without any added points, she had scored 621 on her college entrance exam, and with added points, it was 671. Normally, her learning abilities were quite strong. She was a school tyrant, with only her reasoning ability being poor. Ordinarily, tutoring an average high school student would be more than manageable for her. But she couldn't possibly tutor with Xiang Beifei's results. He scored higher than her even without any added points. Who was supposed to tutor who now? All done for, her little plans shattered by Xiang Beifei. Now she had no leverage. This kid, Didn't he give up and neglect the mock exams? And yet, these scores. Oh my goodness! Principal Li Nanxing from a distance was also stunned. Originally, he thought that given Xiang Beifei's usual performance, getting into college would be quite a struggle. But he saw potential in the boy, so he specially went to encourage him that day. Thinking that Xiang Tianxiong, an N-level awakener, had to repeat 4 years, it seemed only right that Xiang Beifei would need to repeat a few years as well. But today, to everyone's surprise, this kid made a name for himself. Could it be that my words, "Don't underestimate the youth in poverty," really awakened him? Xiang Qingde was still looking down, holding Xiang Beifei's hand. But he suddenly felt the atmosphere was a bit too quiet. What's going on? Were the results so bad that they shocked everyone to silence? It makes sense, after all. Anyone who scored something like 43 on the comprehensive exam would definitely be shocked. No, I must take good care of my grandson's feelings, and we will weather this together. Grandpa, why are you closing your eyes? Xiang Beifei asked. Xiang Qingde hurriedly opened his eyes and consoled. Xiaofei, don't be discouraged. No matter how bad the results are, Grandpa is here for you. Xiang Beifei couldn't help but to feel a mix of amusement and frustration. Had Grandpa always thought he would perform so poorly? However, the old him did have truly disastrous grades, typically those of someone who needed to repeat a year. Xiang Beifei reassured, Grandpa, don't be nervous. You can look at my results first. Xiang Qingde looked up at the big screen anxiously. With presbyopia, he squinted to find the results and finally managed to see Xiang Beifei's scores clearly. The next moment, he was also stunned. This. Xiang Qingde felt his breathing quicken in disbelief. 732. This score was beyond belief. That is you, isn't it? Xiang Qingde looked at the score, doubtful, still wondering if there could be someone with the same name. The candidate number is written right there, Xiang Beifei said. Xiang Qingde rushed forward to take a closer look at the candidate number and, after triple-checking, his shock turned into excitement. He thought that after the exam, Xiang Beifei had locked himself in his room for 3 days because he had done so poorly, grieving alone, and that had him worried sick. Today, he even planned to find a place for Xiang Beifei to repeat the year. But against all expectations, the results turned out like this. It's your score. It really is your score. Haha. My grandson has made something of himself. Xiang Qingde ran back, tears of joy streaming down his face, hugging Xiang Beifei tightly. It wasn't easy. It really wasn't easy. His worry had started the day before the college entrance examination, and it had lasted for almost a week. Just now, he had even prepared comforting words. But Xiang Beifei gave him a wonderful surprise. This grade had dispelled all the gloom that had accumulated in his heart over these days. His grandson really had it in him. Amazing! An N-level awakener scored so high. What you're saying isn't right. Educational achievements and system talents aren't correlated. But a good system can make one's thinking more agile, and it can even improve intelligence. An N-level awakener must not be relying on the system but on himself. That's true. It's really impressive. This score is surely the top one, right? Definitely. Who could have imagined that this year's Luhe High School's top scholar in the college entrance exam would be an N-level awakener? The surrounding people also looked enviously at Xiang Beifei, as parents asked after the high-scoring student's identity, and for a time, Xiang Beifei became the focus of the crowd. He cheated, right? Zhuo Jing said resentfully. Xiang Beifei's grades were always atrociously bad. So how did he suddenly score so high? Now everyone's attention was on Xiang Beifei, overshadowing his own spotlight, leaving no one to admire him. Nonsense! Principal Li Nanxing rebuked. No one can cheat in the college entrance examination. Watch your words. The people around, hearing the principal's words, also thought Zhuo Jing sounded like a fool. In the System World's college entrance examination, the students participating, with the highest talents at most S-class, were monitored with anti-cheating measures set by SR-class individuals. The SR-class anti-cheating measures were more than enough to completely suppress these students' systems. Let alone an N-class system awakener. Zhu Jing's face turned red with the principal's rebuke, and he didn't dare to speak again, forcing down his frustration. The scene was witnessed by thousands of onlookers. There were more parents than students present since many had come with their children. Yet no one suspected Xiang Beifei of cheating. Instead, they saw him as the shining beacon of reversal among N-class awakeners. Xiang Beifei, 732. Are you a god? Kong Xiuwen was first shocked, then shouted excitedly, seemingly more thrilled than Xiang Beifei himself. He used to be at the bottom of the class with Xiang Beifei, but at least he had awakened an S-class system and could trade his hair to boost his intelligence at the last moment. But Xiang Beifei was N-class. In his eyes, that was utterly amazing. At this moment, Kong Xiuwen's score also came out. Kong Xiuwen, S-class, Language 111, Mathematics 103, Comprehensive 191, Introduction to Defense of Jizhou 118, total score 523. Kong Xiuwen was over the moon. Ah, I scored over 500. He yanked at his hair desperately. These past days, in order to score over 500, he had given his all, exchanging all the fallen hair he collected for system rewards that would increase his intelligence. Finally getting some payoff. 523 plus the 50 points, for a total of 573. Securing a spot at an elite university was no issue at all. Congratulations! Seeing Kong Xiuwen score over 500, Xiang Beifei also breathed a sigh of relief. Congratulations for what? I should be congratulating you. Kong Xiuwen laughed heartily. Now our university is set. My son, you did it. A chubby, middle-aged man squeezed through the crowd. His sturdy frame effortlessly pushed through the throng, embracing Kong Xiuwen with such enthusiasm that his rotund belly almost sent Kong Xiuwen flying. This was Kong Xiuwen's father, Kong Daming. Host, Kong Daming. S-Class, Gluttonous Feast System. Realm, Early Meridian Opening. Kong Daming was in the catering business, with culinary skills so divine that he could make a simple cabbage dish drool-worthy. Xiang Beifei had known of Kong Daming from his past memories, but since his arrival, he had not seen Kong Daming and only now realized that Kong Daming was also an S-Class system awakener. Dad, compose yourself. There's someone even more impressive than me here. Kong Xiuwen clutched his aching belly from the collision, but he couldn't quite hide his excitement, letting his dad's chubby hand rub and roll on his head. Yes, yes, yes. I almost forgot. Xiaofei. Good kid. You did it. Ha ha ha. You left my Xiuwen behind by 3 streets. Kong Daming also heartily patted Xiang Beifei on the shoulder, laughing joyfully. Kong Xiuwen and Xiang Beifei were childhood buddies, and Kong Daming had watched Xiang Beifei grow up, always treated him kindly. You flatter me, Uncle Kong, said Xiang Beifei. Kong Daming laughed again and said to Xiang Qingde, Old man, Xiaofei is promising, as remarkable as Tianxing. Ha ha. Xiuwen is not bad either. Xiang Qingde was so happy his wrinkles seemed to lighten, naturally proud when others praised his grandson. The rest of the scores were still popping up one by one. All the exam candidates had found their grades, but so far, no one had surpassed Xiang Beifei's score. The score of 732 was unique. This score was even the highest raw score among all the candidates at Luhe High School for the past 10 years. When the last student score was released, the overall situation for this year's college entrance examination at Luhe High School had become very clear. The second place was taken by Xinyu from Class 1, who had awakened the S-Class Academic God System. With a raw score of 679, and even after adding 50 points, it was still only 729, not surpassing Xiang Beifei. After the scores were announced, the honor roll was updated with other rankings. This ranking included school ranking, Liangzhou ranking, and Zhuzhou ranking. Xiang Beifei, with a raw score, ranked first in Luhe High School, first in Liangzhou, and first in Zhuzhou. In total score ranking, he ranked first in Luhe High School, 18th in Liangzhou, and 75th in Zhuzhou. Total score ranking included various bonus points. In the whole Zhuzhou with over 5 million candidates, no one had a higher raw score than Xiang Beifei. But the thing is, many people had bonus points. Moreover, most of the high-scoring candidates were almost all S-level. Not only benefited from powerful systems but also received favorable additions to their total scores. A full 50 points. News had already spread online that this year's college entrance exam champion of the Jiuzhou Alliance was from Qingzhou, with a raw score of 711 plus 50 bonus points, bringing the total to 761. College entrance exam rankings were based on total scores, and although Xiang Beifei was originally first, many overtook him purely through bonus points. That is to say, 74 people with an added 50 points had surpassed Xiang Beifei. So, in a strict sense, Xiang Beifei only claimed the title of valedictorian for Luhe High School, not for Liangzhou or Jiuzhou. But this was still something to be envied, because at Luhe High School, not a single S-class system awakener who had added points surpassed Xiang Beifei. Xiang Beifei was pondering his scores. He had expected to score full marks in the comprehensive subject. Having arrived in this world for the first time and being able to see everyone's systems clearly, he had studied the knowledge related to the systems very thoroughly. In mathematics, perhaps a careless misstep had cost him 1 point. After all, he was not perfect and could still be negligent. However, his scores in Chinese and Introduction to Defense of Jiuzhou were not as high, scoring 141 on one and 140 on the other. Exams like Chinese and Introduction to Defense of Jiuzhou included subjective questions, where many required the student to express their own views on a matter or a sentence. Such divergent, subjective questions purportedly sought to explore the student's perspective, when in reality, they assessed not the student's perspective, but the perspective of the grader and the answer key. Your view is not important. What is important is whether it aligns with the grader's view. Xiang Beifei guessed that the points he lost were likely in these areas. Hey, what are you thinking about? Lu Jiwei saw Xiang Beifei deep in thought and couldn't help but ask. She still couldn't completely calm down. Xiang Beifei's scores had shocked her too much. She had once thought she was barely an academic overachiever, but compared to Xiang Beifei, she suddenly felt utterly eclipsed. I was thinking about where I might have been careless to get points deducted. Xiang Beifei said casually. Careless? Scoring so high and still thinking about where you might have lost points due to carelessness? Lu Jiwei put her hands on her hips, glaring at Xiang Beifei. Are you asking for a beating by saying that? What's the matter? Xiang Beifei asked, puzzled. Lu Jiwei was so annoyed she could grind her teeth. Didn't we agree that I was going to tutor you in your studies? How am I supposed to tutor you like this? Huh. Xiang Beifei felt it odd and asked, why did you think about tutoring me? Wasn't it agreed 100 per lesson? Lu Jiwei said through clenched teeth. I thought it was 100 per lesson for you to give me money so I could tutor you. Lu Jiwei. Xiang Qingde also realized what had happened and couldn't help but laugh and say, so the agreement this morning about you accepting to tutor, you thought I was asking you to tutor Xiao Wei? Xiang Beifei nodded. It turned out they had been on completely different pages all along. Really odd. Xiang Qingde slapped his own forehead. Oh, my muddled head. My fault. My fault. He had spoken carefully in the morning to spare Xiang Beifei's feelings, so he didn't dare to be too explicit, only to realize later that he had unintentionally caused a misunderstanding. But this misunderstanding was no big deal. Xiang Qingde was still very happy. No worries, no worries. Now that your scores are out and you scored so high, Grandpa is no longer worried about you having no universities to attend. Xiang Qingde felt he could now raise his head and puff out his chest, liberating himself from the frustration he felt when he humbly asked Yang Hua for tutoring classes. His grandson scored so high, although not the top scorer in Liangzhou or Jiuzhou. With such scores, why worry about having no university to attend? He glanced at Zhuo Jing and Yang Hua in the distance, feeling extremely at ease. Having a promising child, he could also stand tall, feeling as if his bent stature had stretched quite a bit. At that moment, Principal Li Nanqing also came over with a pleasant smile, expressing quite amazed. Appearances can be deceiving, Xiang Beifei, our school's top scorer. I didn't expect it at all. It seems I was mistaken.
Ah, sorry.
Li Nanqing admitted this openly and did not deny it, straightforward and generous. He initially didn't believe Xiang Beifei could achieve good results this year, so he genuinely got a shock when he saw the results. Being the principal, he naturally needed to personally congratulate their school's top scorer. Xiang Beifei stood up from the edge of the flower bed and said politely, "Thank you for the cultivation, principal." "Ha ha. Hardly any cultivation, hardly any at all. This matter doesn't have much to do with me. You scoring so high ultimately comes down to your own efforts, which is quite rare indeed." There were many parents around, which was a good opportunity for self-promotion, but Li Nanxing wasn't greedy for credit. His school student getting the highest raw score was honor enough. No need to claim undue credit. He was really too curious and wanted to know how Xiang Beifei had managed to score so high. You should know, just 2 months ago, Beifei's composite score was only 43, with college seeming far out of reach. However, when the results came out, he was in a league of his own, and everyone else could only watch his back. Cheating was definitely impossible, as the surveillance measures in the entrance exams were extremely strict. It seemed now that he had always underestimated this young man. Thinking back to every encounter with Xiang Beifei, the youth was always polite yet confident, not very talkative, and spent more time listening and then pondering. Li Nanxing now realized that this boy, seemingly not good with words, was indeed hiding his brilliance behind simplicity. Other school leaders also gathered to congratulate Xiang Beifei, who did not relish such occasions but responded politely nevertheless. Many people also asked Xiang Qingde how he had managed to raise such a gifted grandson, asking him to share some educational insights that could serve as a reference for their own children's upbringing. Xiang Qingde laughed heartily, his mustache quivering with excitement. He happily clapped Xiang Beifei on the shoulder and shared his approach. "I just let him be." The crowd was stunned. Xiang Beifei could not help but laugh. He knew his grandfather had misunderstood him these days, probably worrying terribly. Just now, he had thought he would need to repeat the year and had gone to see Yang Hua, which turned out to be quite frustrating. Now that an opportunity had come to vent, he naturally seized it and spoke freely. Xiang Beifei did not want to dampen the old man's spirits. Whatever the old man said was fine as long as he was happy. However, Zhuo Jing's expression looked quite unpleasant. Now that Xiang Beifei had become the center of attention, his favorable score of 581 no longer attracted others' admiration. He had to actively seek praise. "So what if you scored high? It's like you think you can get into an elite university." Zhuo Jing spat in envy inside. Among the 9 elite universities, only Liangzhou University admitted awakeners with N classification. But even for Liangzhou University, faced with N-class students, there were thresholds set up that were not easily surpassed. But Zhuo Jing, with his scores, would have ample margin at an elite university. Zhuo Jing glanced at his system panel, where his appreciation value had reached 5,129, enough to exchange for the piercing strike cultivation technique. Another task requiring a score of 550 and 2,000 praises for an appreciation card had also been completed. But he was not eager to exchange it just yet. Now was not the time to exchange techniques. Since the crowd was all gathered here, he wanted to seize the opportunity to earn more appreciation values. Soon, he thought of another way to draw attention. That's right, with my scores, entering one of the 9 elite universities is more than doable. After all, I am S-class, not N-class. It's simply too easy for me to enter an elite university, but elite universities do not admit N-class. Zhuo Jing said this loudly to a friend beside him, not concealing the pride in his voice. Initially, the crowd was watching Xiang Beifei, but upon hearing Zhuo Jing's words, they pondered for a moment, then comprehended the issue. Right? Even if Xiang Beifei was the top scholar in the school, he was merely N-class, something the elite universities normally didn't admit. Even Liangzhou University, the only exception, had not admitted any N-class students for the last 10 years. The bar set for N-class students at elite universities was incredibly high. Many, influenced by Zhuo Jing's words, looked at Xiang Beifei with changed eyes, their admiration tinged with pity. This was just too regrettable. Even someone with 500 points in S-class could easily get in, but a high school entrance score of 732 was kept out of elite universities. Everyone sighed. The awakening system talent determined the threshold for university entry. The world was indeed this realistic. But everyone also understood that the reason for this situation was that the N-level system was simply too outrageous, issuing system tasks that defied logic, and the potential was simply not enough. In this world, the most profound truth was, studying needed to serve practical ends. A good system would enable you to apply the knowledge you've grasped more skillfully. If you had an outrageous system like the N-level, even if you learned much from books, the system tasks would be hard to complete, failing to achieve the goal of applied learning. In other words, cultural course grades determined a person's basic lower limit, while the system talent level determined a person's future upper limit. In the system world, high scores in cultural courses only meant that you had a deeper understanding of the world than the average person, but it didn't mean your future achievements would be higher than others. If people were compared to trees, then the awakened system would be like the fertilizer that helps nurture and grow the tree. An N-level system's fertilizer could at best only allow the tree to grow to 1 meter, while an R-level could make it reach 10 meters, and an S-level could enable it to grow to 100 meters. As for SR and SSR levels, there's no need to say. They were enough to cultivate a person into a towering giant of a tree. And the 9 elite universities, as the name suggested, cultivated students with high future potential. What a pity for such a promising seedling. Even an R-level system would have been good. Someone couldn't help but lament. Yes, it's such a waste. The others echoed in unison with sympathy, regret, and schadenfreude. All kinds of gazes were present, even though they knew there was still a slim hope for N-level candidates at Liangzhou University. That hope was very faint. Because that assessment, according to legend, was an insurmountable chasm for N-levels. Who would have thought the school's top scorer with 732 points would face such an awkward situation? At the same time, people's outlook on Zhuo Jing became even more optimistic. Although his score was only 581, 100 points less than Xiang Beifei, the thing was, he was an S-level. Such a score would comfortably grant him entry into one of the 9 elite universities, and he could choose a good major. The class president is really impressive. Which of the 9 elite universities is our class president planning to choose? Someone asked enviously. Do you even have to ask? His additional points make up a total of 631 points. He can pick any of the 9 elite universities. Yeah, 631 points at S-level is far stronger than 732 points at N-level. You have received praise from Kong Kong. Appreciation value +2. You have received praise from Lulan. Appreciation value +2. Zhuo Jing took the opportunity to harvest another wave of appreciation value, feeling invigorated. He pretended to be humble and said, "Oh, you flatter me too much. I've already set my target. As a member of Liangzhou, I plan to stay in Liangzhou and apply to Liangzhou University." In fact, his decision to apply to Liangzhou University was spur of the moment. Xiang Beifei's usual scores were far from his, yet the examination results had exceeded his, which irked him. He knew that the only chance Xiang Beifei had to apply for an elite university was Liangzhou University. Then he would choose Liangzhou University. During the entrance examination, Xiang Beifei was bound to be eliminated by Liangzhou University. But whichever elite university he chose to attend right now, he was a prospective university student. 581 points got him into Liangzhou University, while 732 points were turned away at its gates. The contrast was stark, and he, as an S-level talent, appeared even more dazzling. Many nodded subtly, showing their admiration for Zhuo Jing's words. Zhuo Jing arrogantly glanced at Xiang Beifei with a sidelong look. What if you are the school's top scorer? What if you are the first in raw scores? My 581 points will still crush your future. They will still steal your limelight. I can still divert everyone's attention from you to me. Jealous? Haha. Not only did I complete the system task, but I also overshadowed the school's top scholar, and I've harvested a bunch of appreciation values. Awesome. Zhuo Jing hummed a tune in his heart. Now it was time to claim the system reward. He happily looked at the system interface, saw the double appreciation card, and the cultivation technique, Piercing Strike. Then he clicked on Claim Reward. 1 minute later. Where's my system reward? Zhuo Jing suddenly turned to stone on the spot. You damn system. You actually swallowed my reward again. Zhuo Jing felt darkness before his eyes and almost passed out. Although Zhuo Jing was an S-level awakener, he had only awakened his system 2 months ago, and his cultivation was still only at the early stage of Qi controlling. Therefore, both Piercing Strike and the Double Appreciation card were also rewards for the early stage of Qi controlling. Xiang Beifei didn't even view such rewards with regard, but he still accepted them graciously. Towards those who had no grudges against him and whose rewards Xiaohe had mistakenly taken, he would return the rewards. For those who were kind to him, he would respect them and try his best to help them. But for those who sought trouble with him, who came bullying up to his face, there was no need for courtesy. If he had no use for them, he could give them to feed a dog. Xiaohe, being a small milk dog with snow-white fur, happily swallowed the 2 items, turning them into a spiritual Qi crystal and collecting them. You damn system! You damn system! Zhuo Jing nearly went mad, still not understanding what had happened, as he still thought the system had glitched like last time. If there hadn't been so many people around, he would have cursed out his system already. He probably didn't even realize that his rewards had truly fallen into the paws of a small milk dog. Because of Zhuo Jing's words, many people stopped envying Xiang Beifei, the school's top scholar, and gradually shifted their attention to other S-level students, which actually relieved Xiang Beifei. He didn't enjoy being surrounded by people. The crowd quickly dispersed, and other school leaders went to congratulate other students. Only Principal Li Nanqing stayed, his expectations for Xiang Beifei never diminishing. Mr. Xiang, may I have a word alone with your grandson? Li Nanqing said to Xiang Qingde. Xiang Qingde was still being surrounded by others, asking about the affairs of being the parent of an original separated family. Li Nanqing's question snapped him back to reality, and he said, You talk, don't mind me. Xiang Beifei, could you come to my office? Li Nanqing said. Okay. Xiang Beifei followed the principal through the crowded throng and returned to the clean and tidy office once more. Li Nanqing gestured for Xiang Beifei to sit down, then poured him a glass of water. Your reported target hasn't changed, has it? Li Nanqing sat in his own chair, looking at Xiang Beifei, his eyes shining brightly and twinkling with wisdom. He wasn't like others who, just because of Zhuo Jing's words, dismissed Xiang Beifei's future. On the contrary, he still believed in this quiet young man. Back when he consulted the system, the boy had inquired about Liangzhou University's entrance assessment for N-level students. Li Nanqing had made a point of inquiring further and already had some leads.